Welcome everyone to the Flame Trench. Today's episode is actually going to be super serious and deep and hang on. I'm being told now that I actually need to go off the rails with it? All right, we can make that change and there will also be no puns and wait, I'm being told that needs to change too and there needs to be more of them? Geez, who would make changes to a contract like this so close to a deadline and cause all delays and issues? Wink, wink. Roll the intro.
And here we go.
There's the W. Here's ignition.
Roger, roll, Atlantic. Doubling up.
Did he just do a Kerbal?
Back to the moon and beyond.
Put that in the big bag, you know.
Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, that sure looks like a perfect flow.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
We did have an observation.
Equalize.
343 unfolds to go.
It's orange.
Water towers can fly!
Bingo! Right in the center. Where's Jacqueline? There it is!
That was surreal.
That's not what we want to see.
No!
Oh my god.
Yikes. You bet. Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Welcome everybody to the Flame Trench. This is our weekly, kind of lighter style news show where we go over some of the topics that we find interesting in space flight related stuff, and we get to discuss it with you guys, chat about it, have some fun, have some I think there's going to be some good discussions on this one, a little bit of disagreement. It's going to be great. I'm Sawyer Rosenstein. I am your host, but as is always the case, I am not alone. I am joined by my competent cohort of co-hosts, as someone used to say, including EJ. How's it going, EJ?
There's no abandoner talk allowed in here. We have to come up with something. We have to come up with something else. Anyway,
cool collection of commentators.
I like that. That's good. That'll work. That'll work. Anyway, what's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing? Hey, real quick, guys. Sorry, I know we got to introduce everybody else, but we didn't do a Flame Trench last week, and that is entirely on me. I had something happen on Friday. I don't want to say what. I don't want to talk about it. But if you were looking for Flame Trench last week and you didn't get one, totally my fault. I apologize. Sawyer, back to you.
Understandable. We're all human. Personal things come up, and appreciate everyone's understanding and patience with it, and glad you're with us this week, EJ. Also joining me this week is Max Evans. Max, how's it going?
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, lots to talk about this week, and certainly on the spicier side. And I'm rather looking forward to seeing EJ's passion about it, as we were talking about it in the pre-show. But yes, it is good to be here.
And it's not just EJ's passion. Someone else that was very adamant about this topic as well in the pre-show, which means I think we're going to have some really good discussions, is Alex as well. Alex, how's it going?
Why you copied my shirt? I could not even fake being angry.
You didn't get the memo?
I'm a really bad actor. But yeah, hi. I'm here.
On Wednesdays, we wear pink. On Fridays, we wear Artemis 2 shirts. I don't know, something like that. And pushing buttons, pulling the levers today, producing is Kevin Michael Reed. As always, if you have questions about a topic, tag us at NASASpaceflight or at NSF in chat. But just a reminder, please try and keep it related to the topic that we are discussing at that time. If you have Starship questions at the beginning of the show, they are going to get totally lost by the time we get to Starship later on, all right? Cool. So, kind of hinted at a little bit in the cold open with the wink wink there. We had some interesting Office of the Inspector General reports come out this week. Let's start with the one about some of the canceled programs that NASA recently canceled with the whole ignition event, and we learned some more details about them. EJ, this one's all you.
Oh boy. Okay, so on the 24th, so that was Wednesday, NASA released an OIG report, an Office of Investigator General report on canceled NASA hardware that was the result of NASA's change in architecture for switching from like going to Gateway to going down to the surface of the lunar base. This was all rolled out in February of this year under kind of a whole kind of show that Jared Isaacman and NASA administration did called Ignition, where they changed the plans for SLS. That includes like the standardized Centaur, et cetera, et cetera. But this OIG report was specifically about the stuff that was canceled. So they talked about 4 specific programs that are basically gone: the Exploration Upper Stage, the Universal Stage Adapter, Mobile Launcher 2, and Gateway's Habitation and Logistics Outpost. And if you've read this report, then actually, let me put it this way: if you read this report and didn't get annoyed in some way, shape, or form, yeah, I envy you, because this one got a little it's a little hard to read. So essentially this program goes through, this OIG report goes through like how the money was spent on these programs, how much they were delayed by up until the point of cancellation, and at the point of cancellation when they were projected to be ready. Okay, so we could start with the EUS right here. EUS is NASA's Exploration Upper Stage. That is the stage that SLS was supposed to use post-Artemis 4, put an asterisk next to that, but it was Artemis 4, now it's not, et cetera, et cetera. Plans change, and that's kind of the theme of this whole OIG report. So check this out. The EUS contract was awarded in February of 2019 for $962 million. Put an asterisk next to that. Remember that. Remember February 2019 for $962 million. It was awarded to Boeing with expected delivery in March of 2021. It ended up being delayed to at least August 2028, and the cost had ballooned at $2.9 billion, like a 300% overrun, which is, you look at that and you say, what the heck, Boeing, right? But here's the thing. The EUS was deprioritized when NASA changed their mission plans in the early 2020s. Initially, right, the EUS, when the Artemis program was first came around, the EUS was supposed to fly on Artemis 2, right? And that didn't happen. They changed it to fly on Artemis 4 instead, and then NASA at the time under Jim Bridenstine bought 2 extra Delta stages for Artemis 2 and Artemis 3, which is what we have now. I mean, 2 of them have flown. The Artemis 3 one, we don't know what that's going to be used for. Maybe because Artemis 3 is now a low Earth orbit mission and was originally a lunar lander mission. We don't know. We'll figure that out. But the program is basically put on life support for a number of years. And then if you look at that cost projection thing, you see a spike where they took the program, quote unquote, off life support and started making forward progress here. COVID also had a lot to do with the delays, but yeah, it's not great. We're looking at a 300% overrun here. The reason why I wanted everybody to remember February 2019 for $962 million is because that, and once again, if we look at the funding report, Kevin, I don't mean to backseat produce, but can you bring that funding report for the EUS back up, the thing that we had on a second ago? If you look at this, the funding starts in 2020, right? But in the report, right? See, it starts right there on the chart. It starts in 2020. But the report says that initial funding for the EUS was awarded in February of 2017. And this doesn't cover it, right? That doesn't cover it. The reason why is because SLS's core stage procurement contracts were roped into, the EUS was roped into the core stage procurement contracts in 2017. Yeah, that's right. The first stage contract and the second stage contract were roped together, and they were 2 CLINs, which is a contract line item number. They were 2 CLINs on the same contract. The core stage contract technically had the second stage contract too, from February 2017 to February of 2019. And not 100% sure how much money got allocated to EUS development at that point. I don't know. And then if you look at the footnotes in the OIG report, it says they didn't take into account that information because they weren't sure where to find it. They So what I'm trying to tell you is that the SLS procurement contracts in the late 2010s were so ridiculously bad and so ridiculously like kind of convoluted that NASA had to redesign them. And that's where the funding from this report starts, which is, not going to say that's a little bit of a red flag. It's a little bit of a red flag. Now, that's just with the EUS, right? The Universal Stage Adapter, which is what's supposed to go on top of the EUS with Orion on top of that, that was awarded in June of 2017 to Dynetics for $131 million, right? And it was expected to be delivered in August of 2021. And that ended up being delayed to September of 2028 for $353 million. Once again, more or less a 300% cost overrun, which is NASA, and the OIG report says that the reason why this program has run so long and the reason why it took so long to make literally a fairing is because design requirements changes. The original contract denoted no payload separation system, and they added that later to the tune of another $100 million. So, let's just make fairings without a separation system. Why not? Right? Now, to be fair, the flip side of that is they don't know what they're separating because I don't know what's launching on Block 1B SLS. We don't know. I have no idea. So NASA kept changing things to the point where Dynetics basically ghosted them and was like unresponsive to NASA. NASA's like, hey, you should change this. And Dynetics like, oh, look, NASA's calling again. Sorry, I'm going into the tunnel. Click. Right? It's not great. It's not great. So the Universal Stage Adapt, they ended up awarding a contract for a payload fairing with no payload separation system. So, that's good. Lovely. And it's like 10 years too late. It's like 10 years late. Whatever. 10 years since the contract was awarded. Now, ML2, the Mobile Launcher 2, the contract for that was awarded in June of 2019 for $383 million to Bechtel National. Like, everybody knows this story, right? But it gets a little spicy here, all right? The delivery was expected in March of 2023. It ended up being delayed to December of 2026, and the cost had ballooned to about $2 billion, right? Now, I know what you're saying, like, wow, that's Bechtel, like, oh, they didn't realize the scope of the project. Well, yeah, of course they didn't realize the scope of the project. They didn't realize the scope of the project because they were trying to design a mobile launcher for a rocket that didn't exist. NASA awarded the Mobile Launcher 2 contract before the exploration upper stage and the Universal Stage Adapter had been finalized in their design. So Bechtel was trying to make a mobile launcher for a rocket that didn't exist. That's the gist of it. The OIG says Bechtel underestimated the scope and complexity of ML2, and due to the structure of the contract, NASA had to assume additional costs required for the launcher's development. That sounds a lot like you're designing for a rocket that doesn't exist. Right? So Bechtel had to basically clean sheet the design, and when NASA said, no, you don't have to clean sheet, you have to do this, they ignored them. And I don't know, you guys can say whatever you want about Bechtel, right? But they actually finished it. The mobile launcher was on track to be finished basically this year, just for what it's worth. Now, I do see a lot of super chats in chat. So Sawyer, before I get to the Halo module, I think we should, you want it? There's a lot of support over there.
Keep on going, EJ.
Okay.
I want to get through all the spicy stuff here. Keep going. This is getting good.
Oh, okay. Halo is not. This should piss you off. Like, sorry, this should make everybody pretty upset. This is bad. So the habitation and logistics outpost for the Gateway, it was basically the habitation component of Gateway. The contract was awarded in 2019 for $1.3 billion to Northrop Grumman with expected delivery in May of 2025. That ended up being delayed to October 2026 and had a $600 million cost overrun. All right. Now, there's a couple of interesting things to note here. All right. The biggest driver behind the Halo module being delayed has to do with them changing the launch vehicle. Halo was supposed to launch on a co-manifested payload on SLS Block 1B. And then Orion was supposed to pluck it off of the EUS and attach it to the power and propulsion element, which would have been launched also on an SLS, right? And Orion, through every one of these missions, was supposed to build out Gateway through the Artemis missions. And then that would have culminated in a landing, right? Now, they changed it. NASA changed the launch vehicle from SLS to Falcon Heavy and then mandated that the power and propulsion element and the Halo module needed to be launched as one piece on Falcon Heavy. That is what made the big cost overrun with this program. They also, because they changed the launch vehicle type, right, they changed the contracting structure from cost plus to firm fixed price and then back to cost plus after they changed the launch vehicle, which is on top of all that, the Halo module, the primary structure of the Halo module was not even made by Northrop Grumman. It was subcontracted to, they didn't say, but I think I have a good idea. If you know who makes space station module pressure vessels, I'm pretty sure you could figure it out. Because of the change in scope and requirements to this, right, the Halo module ended up sitting there for a little while. And because it sat there for a little while in a subcontractor's, warehouse, the aluminum structure ended up having corrosion inside of it because it sat there and did nothing. Right? So that would have delayed the project even more. I mean, they were saying, Halo is supposed to be 2026. That's unlikely because they'd have to go and clean the module, et cetera, et cetera. It's not great. It's not great, guys. Here's the kicker with the Halo module. It's because of all this stuff, NASA, the OIG said at the very end of their stuff about Halo that I'm quoting here, due to the projected end date far into the future and limited availability of contractor monthly financial management reports, we were unable to perform a complete cost projection for Halo. So that $600 million overrun that the OIG suspects is kind of just, maybe that's how much it would have cost. Northrop Grumman subcontracted the Halo module out so hard that they can't keep track of where the money's going. The OIG can. I don't know about NASA, but that's bad. That's really bad. It's not great. I'm trying not to get wound up by this. I've been talking about this OIG report on my end pretty much all week. Every time I read it again, I'm just like, now, boys, I guess the question that I have for you based off of all of this, okay, so first and foremost, right, there are programs here like the EUS with the contract restructuring for EUS and the OIG not taking that into account. That means that the EUS program could be way more than what their projected $2 billion is because they can't figure out where the money comes from. And then the Halo module, they can't figure out where the money comes from, right? Like that is, look, guys, if I have money in my bank account and tax season comes around and, I file my tax returns and the money I have in my bank account does not reflect the money that came into my bank account, right? I have to account for that money or else I go to jail. So what's that like? What it's fine here? I don't think that's okay at all. But here's the thing. These are canceled programs. What happened in the past is what happened in the past. I guess my first question out of a bunch I have, with the information presented is this going to make a difference? Is this going to make a difference? We cut out all these programs. Is that going to change this, how, allocation is happening under Jared? I don't know. It's bad, man. The way the contracting structure worked for SLS was so bad that even NASA had to change it in response to an OIG report in 2018. It was so bad like roping core stages in with EUSs. I mean, Sawyer, I don't know. I'll ping it back to you. Is this going to change the contract procurement? Like, I mean, canceling these programs is great, but there's clearly a budgeting problem here. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, the OIG can say what it wants about the contracts. The problem is the contracts are being made and written. It's a little hard to go back and change it. Or in this case, when you do go back and change it and then you don't adjust the contract, at least financially, you don't adjust the contract with more realistic deadlines and things like that, then you get a program like we have now where everything gets super delayed. And by the time it comes around, it's almost twice the cost. And then you end up just canceling it anyway. So you get all this money, you try to build it, and then you end up wasting the money anyway, and you still have no hardware. I mean, we have no SLS Block 1B, we have no Mobile Launcher 2 now. We should have all of that, in theory. We have no more Lunar Gateway, so there goes Halo for its original purpose, things like that. It's just... I mean, I don't know how anything like that can change. It's just the way government contracts end up being, but this feels extra irresponsible looking at the numbers. And I will say it makes a lot more sense why when you see ML2 out there where looked like it was almost completely done and fully stacked, that all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we're going to cancel it because it's actually already at the edge of being overweight and now we need more things on it, which is going to actually make it overweight. So we have to figure that out. You know, minor detail.
I mean, tying in the EUS to the core stage of development, I guess in the short term when that decision was made, maybe was thought to have somehow smoothed out the order of operations by bringing both stages under one roof. Obviously, with Boeing being the primary contractor for the core stage as well. But it's programs and overruns like this that have given NASA such a bad rap in the last few years in terms of cost overruns and delays. Like, this is exactly why their image was so bad prior to Artemis 2, and honestly, prior to Jared's term as admin at NASA. So there's still obviously a lot of work left to do now, but at least we have a path forward lined out in terms of the ignition program and also all the announcements coming both with the HLS landers and also the moon base going forward. But that doesn't change the era between like 2017 and 2024, 2025. So, yeah, I think EJ took all the words out of my mouth. I don't know if I have much more reasonable to say on it, because this whole document really just honestly speaks for itself, and it's super disappointing. But going back to your original question, EJ, like if this makes a difference, I think to learn and to improve on decision making going forward and order of operations, you have to understand what exactly went wrong in the past. So I can at least appreciate all of this information actually coming to light, as maddening as it may be for someone in our position reading about just how atrocious this is in terms of timeline delays and cost overruns. I mean, for God's sake, the EUS, or what was it? The stage adapter being
USA?
assigned. Yes.
USA.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the USA.
Yeah, the USA.
Being assigned in 2017 and being ready for delivery in 2028. 11 years. 11 years. And the expiration of upper stage being a 9-year delay. Now, granted, I know obviously something happened between 2020 and 2021 into 2022. No one is denying that, obviously. But we're a long way past that now. It's 2026. I don't even know if I have the words to properly articulate the frustration just in reading this, EJ. Like I share very, very similar, very similar feelings as to you do. But again, to answer your question, it helps to know what went wrong in the past to look out for signs of what may happen in the future regarding contracts being written for either hardware or program systems going forward. So it helps to know what went wrong in the past, because if you don't know what went wrong in the past, especially for a government organization like NASA, you going forward is going to be kind of it's going to be a mess.
So, I mean, Max, you're saying learn from your mistakes, and that's all fair. But so I got one. I'm going to put one to you here. Like, okay, so it seems that past NASA administrations changing the mission profile and architecture coupled with subcontracted design contracts with no indefinite delivery are the biggest problems, right? Like that seems to it, guys. Like there is some shady contractor stuff here in this OIG report, but it's not entirely on the contractors. NASA's contract procurement structure is atrocious. It's terrible. It's god awful. Like it's bad. Roping, like Max, like roping core stage and EUS together in one contract on separate contract line items is like that's like borderline fraud. And I'm not saying it is, but like that's a little bit of a gray area, dude. Yeah. I went and dug back in an OIG report from 2018 saying, and the OIG was like, yeah, no, don't do that. You have to rewrite that. So, like, okay, the point that I'm trying to get at, dude, sorry, I don't mean to talk everybody's ear off.
No,
here,
dude, you're good. Like this is this entire subject is totally up your alley, and that's why I was so pumped to hear you talking about this. Genuinely.
Okay, so the question I'm trying to go back at you with is like, okay, a lot of this stems from putting these programs on life support for basically 5 years, coupled with the pandemic, right? Because they decided to go with a cheaper solution with procuring 2 more ICPSs for Artemis 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
How do we know that? And that, like I said, seems to be exactly what Jared's doing, minus putting the programs on life support. But how do we know that this won't happen again? It seems that a lot of this comes from A, NASA not designing the stuff in-house, and B, changing the mission profile and architectures. Now we've done that here. How do we know that this won't happen again? How do we know this isn't going to cause more delays, dude?
I don't know if I have a good answer for that, EJ. I like to be completely honest. I don't. Right? I mean, especially from our perspective, outside looking in on both the program with NASA and for its contractors being Blue Origin, SpaceX, and others. I don't know if I have a good answer for that, but I think one thing that we do have, or many things that we have going forward now regarding Artemis and our plans to go back in 2028 and in terms of a landing, we know there's actual hardware being built now. Like there is a deadline. There are consequences if we don't meet that deadline or not. And back then, I think that this kind of ties into a flame trench that we did many months ago, in terms of talking about why it took Artemis so long to get to where it was, and why we didn't land in 2024. There's actual consequences now if we get it wrong, and we know that both Blue and SpaceX are building hardware to actually get to where we need to go, and there is a solid plan of action going forward in terms of Blue's hardware, SpaceX's hardware, and NASA's hardware to get to Artemis 3 and Artemis 4, depending on how Artemis 3 goes, depending on if both Blue and SpaceX are ready, if SpaceX is ready and Blue isn't, or if Blue is ready and SpaceX isn't. So, but again, like I don't know if I have a concrete, solid answer to that question, because only, as we say ever so often, and I know it sounds cliche, only time will tell.
Mm-hmm. So, Aaron, what do you think?
One person we haven't heard from in this is Alex, and I'm very interested, Alex, in what your thoughts on this.
Alex,
I've let you guys, do your thing.
That's the spicy part.
Yeah, because there's so much to talk about this, right? Like, we could probably have the entire show just about this. Like, for example, when you guys were talking about well, we can probably hit what Kevin was trying to show. I'll do that. I'll be good with Kevin. I'll talk about what he was showing. You can show it, or should I do my thing?
First, we gotta name you. There you go.
So obviously, these reports go to NASA, and they reply to the Inspector General. And so here, for example, is some of their comments, and they say, well, the OIG's projections indicate that continuing these systems will likely increase total life cycle cost. NASA stresses that these projections rely on past performance under outdated architectural assumptions that do not reflect the ignition day principles of discipline, affordability, simplification, and speed. And that makes me question, okay, and then so if things are not gonna go this way forward, why would you cancel it? But anyways, my first impression when I saw this, it's actually that the Mobile Launcher 2, it's actually the best of the 4 in terms of, like, they looked at every single, like, at these 4 programs, and the least screwed one is Mobile Launcher 2. How about that?
Yep.
they at least built it, kind of.
Yeah.
Like I
Mostly.
said, Vectel
'cause
gets a
it
bad
says-
rap, but
Yeah, because if
that
you
mobile
show
launcher is built.
it's on page 9, I think, Kevin. If you want to show the graphic, it shows that completion was supposed to be December 2026. Still way later. Like it was supposed to be years later. And it is true that after completion, the Mobile Launcher 2 had to go to the pad and do a bunch of like functional tests and everything. Because once you built it, it's not like, just suddenly, oh, we built it. Okay, let's put a rocket on it. No. You got to go out there and test it for real. But there's also Artemis 3 campaign going on as well. And so it's not like you can easily do that and just, put that mobile launcher out there. And also there's no, like, this thing, it was supposed to be for Block 1B. There's no EUS. It says on the EUS chart, it says, I think, like December or November 2028. And for the USA, I never remember the upper stage adapter, basically.
Universal stage adapter.
Universal stage adapter, basically. Yeah,
USA.
for the one that goes on top of the US, that one is like May 2030. And Halo, it's something like 2031 or something like that, until it's actually like launched and delivered in lunar orbit. Because like delivery for final outfitting and like the corrosion, mitigation measures and things like that, it was saying something like summer, like July 2028. I read the report for This Week in Spaceflight. We'll feature in this after the Flame Trench show ends. And it's like, it's just funny that the thing that was probably the worst managed project, in my opinion, of all of these, is actually the one that's probably the closest to completion, I guess, in that sense. But yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised by a lot of things, because there's been, as EJ was mentioning, right, there's been so many of these reports in the past, not just about EUS or all of these programs that are here in this particular report, but also in previous places. EJ was talking about the accounting part, and there's been many, especially the Government Accountability Office, which is a different sort of body of investigation and whatnot within the government, where in previous instances, they were telling NASA, guys, you're doing some shady stuff here. You're putting together the cost of different programs under the same umbrella without really doing like a line by line sort of like a way of actually telling what costs what, like down to this stage cost this and this thing cost this. There's this famous report that came out, I think, in 2021 ahead of Artemis 1, where they came out with a $4 billion tag for SLS. That took them so long to go through all of the different cost items and like what's this cost and this other thing and this, and they told NASA, folks, you gotta be better with this. You really need to get better at telling us that this thing costs this other thing, and it just gets worse and worse. The other day, we did not have a Flame Trench last week, but I was prepared to talk about the station's report that came out from the Government Accountability Office. And there was a part of it, how they've kept extending the life of the station and doing extensions and things like that. Every single time that they've done an extension, they have not properly documented it. So whenever they've done another extension, new people came in, they were probably like new executives, a new administrator, new everything, and then they had to extend the life of the station. And GAO said, folks, you gotta document this. If you're gonna extend again the life of the station to 2032, for example, you gotta document that. You really need to do that. This is the sort of things that you sometimes see in these reports, and most of the time NASA says, yeah, good thing. And nothing happens. So I come back again to that comment that NASA told the OIG on this, which is like, okay, things are gonna change. How? Right? It's like, is it really gonna change?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Is all of these things are all of these things gonna be actually heard of and like applied to and things being properly done? I don't know. It's
I guess the best answer I have for that, Alex, is that Jared has said that NASA has a capital allocation problem, and Yeah, I kind of agree with him. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a heck of a thing to call this, but yeah.
There's to sort of
great.
add on to my rant here. There's also an interesting part in this report. It's words, so probably not really fancy for Kevin to look up. But there's an interesting difference that I noticed in previous reports when they were talking, for example, about the core stage or the exploration upper stage or something like that. They used to say that it was a cost plus cost fee, whatever kind of contract, right? Usually the plus side, like the extra fee that NASA gives to the contractor, is usually based on certain like points of like them evaluating the performance of the contractor. And for a long time, even though there were cost overruns and there were issues with design, build, and testing and all that stuff, even though there were all of these problems, they kept giving the contractors a perfect or efficient score or something like that. It is, I think, there's a few of these examples where it was, here, for example, while Bechtel's performance somewhat improved after starting construction on the ML2 for the period ending in September 25, NASA rated the contractor's performance as only satisfactory and cited numerous management deficiencies involving subcontractor oversight, supply scheduling, and workflow efficiency. So for a long time, these contractors kept getting like these fees and super duper good ratings and everything. And it's not being until this report that I started seeing things like this. And there's another example with Dynetics on the USA, on the Universal Stage Adapter. Although NASA rated Dynetics performance as very good in 2024, two evaluations in 2025 affirmed the agency's increasing dissatisfaction with the contractor's performance when they lowered Dynetics rating to good and then unsatisfactory. Like, this is the very first time I'm seeing this kind of thing. This sort of thing of like, let's stop saying, oh, you're doing a very good job, right? When it's actually not a very good job. Like, I get it. They're trying their best, whatever. Like, if you want to be fair to them, like, right?
You're doing great, sweetie.
Exactly. But it's like, you're the guys that contracted these people, right? Like, let's not give them more money just for the sake of it, right? Like, if they do stuff that is not getting where you want to be, like, look, one of the things that Jared said, and I kind of agree with it, is that Gateway was planning like the 2010s to be launched at the end of the decade or like beginning of the 2020s. By the time we are in 2026, and it was just now getting, all of the outfitting and everything. It's still not launched. If it had launched in 2020 or 2021, it probably would have been a great asset, and maybe Artemis 2 could have gone out there and docked to it. Maybe Artemis 2 was already a Block 1B and with the exploration upper stage and all that stuff. Like, one of the reasons, in fact, that the exploration upper stage was delayed was because the core stage development was going behind schedule. And NASA told Boeing, hey, stop it with the exploration upper stage, fix core stage development, finish the first core stage, and launch Artemis 1, and then you can proceed. And that's what happened at the end of the day. But that is like, the deficiency of one program was caused by the other program also being deficient. And so it loops all over. You get what I mean here? That if everything was good at the end of the day, all of these programs will have probably happened all the way to completion. And we'll be using all of this. Even if it had been a little bit cost overruns, even if it had been more expensive, but at least still on time, I bet we will still be using this. Nobody will have tried to cancel. 3 different administrators from 2 different political parties tried to cancel these things. Like, let's be real. This is not even partisan.
What?
There probably is a dimension out there where SLS did fly with the EUS on Artemis 2 and on time back in like 2020, 2021, somewhere out there in the universe. But obviously,
There's some
we do not
parallel
live there.
universe
You
where
sure
that
about
happened.
that? It seems like such a high improbability that would happen in any universe at this rate.
Well,
Here's something from.
Sorry, real quick. all that happened because they changed the Artemis mission profile because they had deadlines. You know, they weren't sure if the EUS was going to be finished in time for, in the late 2010s. They weren't sure if the EUS was going to be finished and Mobile Launcher 2 was going to be finished in time for the presidential mandate of landing in 2024.
Which in turn is because the core stage was delayed. Like it's like nested delays. It's like one thing gets delayed because the other thing gets delayed, and then that creates another delay of the other thing, and then the other. It's like you know what I mean? It's like the Ouroboros sort of thing, and it's just.
Sorry. I mean, jump into what you were going to do. We'll talk about it in a second.
No, I was just going to bring this up because Ethan brought this up in chat earlier, saying, so just to make sure I understand this, what Administrator Isaacman has been doing with cutting / reworking major programs is a good thing, ?
See, that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's hard to say because what was I just saying? They changed all this stuff as a result of an executive branch goal to get to the moon in 2024, and that caused a reverberation. And that's for the most part, changing up the mission architecture is for the most part why like the vast majority of this stuff got delayed. But Alex is right. It was already like the reason why it got delayed in the first place and why they changed up the mission architecture is because they didn't think it would be ready because of this behavior in the first place. Now, Jared's gone in. Instead of putting these programs on life support, he said, bye-bye, which I get, but here we are again, changing up our mission architecture. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, right? So, okay, we changed up your mission architecture to standardize SLS, all right? And now you're using 2 different commercial landers for a potential lunar landing in 2028, right? All this is doing is taking that same schedule risk and schedule pressure and putting it on the contractors now. Like, it's not going to be the same exact flavor of, dung, to be honest with you, but it's going to be a similar one. How do we know? Like, we already see it happen, guys. How many people out there, are getting up SpaceX's tailpipe because we haven't seen any HLS renders or anything? You already see this happening, right? It's the same thing that people say we're saying about SLS 7 years ago when they started changing this stuff in the first place. So Ethan, we don't know. That's what I mean. I trust Jared to do something about it. We had a pretty good chit chat with him 2 weeks ago, and he addressed most of these problems. But this time it's not. I'm not going to say that it's the same thing. It's not. And I do appreciate Jared just pulling the Band-Aid off, instead of just sitting there and being like, no, it'll be ready, right? But also, the same schedule risks are now with the landers instead of with NASA. So how do we know it's not just it's not just going to do the same thing with the landers, right? Like, see what I'm trying to say? Like, this could be good, but it could also be just repeating this, but different, but the same. It's hard. Like, I don't know. This refactoring mission architecture seems to be the reason why all of this waste and results have happened. What's up, Alex?
I also wonder, because I'm seeing some people also talking about, well, but why did they? Because and I also guess it's also related to what I mentioned at the beginning of my long rant, which was like, okay, NASA says that this mode of management will no longer be the case. It's like a nested flame train show. Hi, administrator. But it's like, it's this whole thing of like, okay, if this is not gonna be the kind of management going forward, why don't you change the management of these programs and make them go to completion? Instead, as you mentioned, they've slashed things, right? But there had been to be some replacements here and there. Obviously, Halo is not being replaced. They're not doing Gateway. They're not replacing Mobile Launcher 2 either. They're just using Mobile Launcher 1. They are kind of replacing, because they still need some more SLSs beyond Artemis 3. They are kind of replacing EUS and the Universal Stage Adapter, right? With Centaur 5. And there are comments, and I get them, like, I totally get it, talking about, I don't believe that changing US and USA for Centaur 5 can really get things closer in time. But, and this is another important but here, which is the report says that US, yes, it might have been ready by 2028. The adapter that goes on top will not have been ready for another 2 years. So you will have basically a headless rocket, just like we're going to have with Artemis 3 in a few months, right? Rolling out the stack with just the core stage and the solar rocket boosters. Well, in this case, it will also have an EUS and things like that, but it will not have the adapter for Orion because it will not have been delivered until 2030. So it's like, so you wait then until 2030? That's a 3-year gap. You remember the 3-year gap that he was talking about and all that stuff? Mm-hmm. Now, I do believe that it's also going to be interesting to see how they're going to be coming up with an adapter and things like that for Centaur and all that stuff. Is it what they're trying to explain here with that argument that they said? That they're no longer going to try and go with this kind of management, that maybe with a different way they can come up with an adapter in like 2 years, basically, because now it could just be only Artemis 5 that carries a Centaur. So I'm really wondering about that. I'm not siding here because I really am in a wait and see kind of moment, to be fair. It's also kind of not my rocket, to be fair. I'm not American. What goes on top, it's kind of my thing because European Service Module. But what I'm trying to say here is that I just want people on the moon. Whatever. Like, just do it. Do whatever.
Yeah.
It's your money.
I know. Yeah.
Unfortunately. But, yeah. There are things that I do agree with, some things that I don't agree with, but at the end of the day, that doesn't change much. It's just that I can see the reasoning behind some of this stuff, right? And I just want to know whether that's actually going to reach to any useful end. And only time will tell. That's why I'm in a wait and see mode. So that, yeah.
I mean, that seems to be the summary of this whole thing, is only time will tell. But then again, we've also given it how much time for them to tell, and they still haven't told. So
it's kind of where I'm at, Sawyer. Like, how do we know this just isn't history repeating itself? Because I'll admit, when Jim Bridenstine, the 13th NASA administrator, came out and said, like, oh, we're going to do Artemis 1, 2, and 3 using ICPSs, which are Delta 4 heavy upper stages, right? And then bought them, I called that a good idea. I was like, yeah, that's great. That's going to increase SLS's flight rate. That gives you a reason to buy more core stages, et cetera, et cetera. In hindsight, that was a stupid thing to do. Like, that doesn't address the problem that you have programs that delays are folding into delays that are folding into delays. That is a Band-Aid mitigation at best. How do we know that this isn't the same way? You know what I mean? How do you know? I could say conclusively that was a really bad idea, but we have the benefit of hindsight. But, it's, I guess where I'm at with this is like, either way, it seems like, NASA under Jared is going to lean heavily into commercial. This kind of gives SLS like an off ramp, right? And I don't, and then maybe in the future we could do commercial procurement of spacecraft. Like NASA will buy like a fleet of Starships or something and a launch pad to launch it and then operate it themselves. That would be kind of cool.
Just like my aircraft.
Yeah. Exactly. That's it. But that hasn't happened yet. And until it does, I don't think it's wise to off-ramp SLS. And people are going to sit here and say like, oh, it's commercial. The commercial is the solution. Commercial is the solution. Well, no, it's not. NASA designing the thing in-house and then farming out the contracts under, a fixed price for procurement and block buys seems to be the way to go. That's what Apollo did, right? Apollo paid for the development and then they,
and
in-house, and then they went and procured this stuff under firm fixed pricing. People that are, like, I see folks that are advocates for commercial that says, NASA should just buy stuff as a service. Well, I disagree. No,
Starliner. It not always works. Like that's the
Bingo.
point, right? Dream Chaser as well. Heck, I mean, Cygnus worked, but the rocket Antares didn't really do much other than just launching Cygnus, right? Falcon 9 was sort of the only thing that really worked, so to speak, out of CRS, COTS, and all that stuff, and then Commercial Crew. But even then, I will argue, because this is another point that the report makes, previous reports made, and multiple companies have complained about many times. Not just the new space companies, the old space companies. I even see comments in the chat about this. NASA likes to change the requirements as they go. And that is not beneficial. Because if you fix the requirements from the start and you don't change them, you put it a lot more easier for the companies. But if mid-development cycle, you keep telling, you go back and you say, oh no, now we're going to change this, and now we're going to change that, now we're going to do this, and whatever. Like for example, for EUS, they did exactly that multiple times. There was a development cycle before the pandemic times, and then afterwards as well, there was another change in design and things like that. For the upper stage, the universal stage adapter, they did the same. Mobile launcher too, like for every single thing, Halo as well, for every single thing in this report, they did the same. So the performance of the contractors was bad, but then management at NASA was also bad because they kept coming back and telling them, oh, now you need to change this, and now you need to do this because we need weight lowering and because we need to lower the weight and we need to make it more higher performance, for example, with the EUS and things like that. It's like, why don't you try to get an initial capability? Why don't you try to at least, okay, it might be overweight, it might be not the 100% thing that you want. Get an early thing that can get you off the ground. And then you go and change things. And this is essentially what's sort of trying to be fed into the new NASA, I guess. For example, with the lunar terrain vehicle contracts that they issued last month, they said we removed a bunch of very difficult requirements that we kept adding because it makes this thing to just not be off the ground. I guess on the ground, but lunar ground in that case. I don't know. I don't know if you guys sort of get what I mean. I think Jared mentions this multiple times where it's like, just get the 70% thing out there first. And then you can improve it, and then you can iterate on that and get it to the 100% that you want.
But the 70% solution is how SLS Block 1B was procured in the first place. And, you know, like Alex, I don't mean to make a pun here because I know Sawyer's here and I can't endorse that kind of behavior. But SLS 1B wasn't getting off the ground with this 70% solution. You know why? Because it would have ended up being too heavy. Not to launch, but to move to the pad. That's why the Bechtel contract spiraled out of control by like 300-400%, because Bechtel was trying to make a mobile launcher for an upper stage and universal stage adapter that didn't exist.
It was mostly just the problem with the overweight of mobile launcher and the rocket itself. One of the problems with that is it's the same problem, for example, as when you hear that the SRBs have a 1-year limit on stacking, where it's like there are this sort of margins built into it, and they're concerned about getting into them like this. And there's just being so much about it that, I don't know, man, I think they will have been fine. And the problem is, it's not just the contractor, but it's also the way NASA keeps going back and asking this. Commercial Crew happened the same thing. I've known from stories that both Boeing and SpaceX, more with SpaceX and Boeing, where they kept coming back to them and telling them, hey, we want this on Dragon, and then we want this on Falcon 9, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. Even though it was a fixed price and everything, all of the delays and everything kept coming up, and the cost increases were eaten up by the company. And this is like in multiple reports in the past and things like that. Like you can look it up. It's a very well-documented thing of NASA coming back to the contractors and telling them, hey, we changed our minds, change this design. And then the contractor is like, well. And so I'm not saying that the contractors don't have any fault here. I'm just saying that this worsens the bad performance. The already bad thing, it makes it worse.
But those design stipulation and changes aren't just because NASA is picky about going down the buffet line, dude. It's because their mission scope keeps changing because SLS frankly didn't have any, and I feel like we've just kind of drawn a line on a chalkboard to be like, oh yeah, moon, oh gateway, oh okay. They didn't just change it because they felt like it.
I mean, at some points it kind of kept being the same, yet, but things kept changing in the design.
Because of the changing mission requirement? Question. Hello?
Yeah, but why would you change again all of the mission requirements?
You changed the mission
You wanna go
requirements
to the
because
moon.
stuff was late, dude. That's what I've been trying to tell you.
That's the point that I'm trying to make here.
The mission requirements changing again. Like hasn't Ignition done that as well?
That's Kevin. That's the point that I'm. Hi, by the way. That's the point that I'm trying to make. How do we know history isn't going to repeat itself here? You know, we're
Right.
touted that this is
You
the
don't just go
solution.
to the rocket store and pick up a rocket and say, okay, we're going to fly to the moon. Like there's development. EJ, you mentioned earlier that there was no design, there was no finished design, and that's why the cost overruns happen. But couldn't this just happen again? You know, if the plan changes, if the plan for Artemis 4 changes again, it's just going to keep happening because space is experimental. And I guess that's you I mean, eventually, again, another thing that you mentioned, eventually NASA can go to SpaceX and say, hey, I need a Starship. But you're buying the Starship that is completed and ready to go. You're buying it off the shelf. This is not buying rockets off the shelf and buying upper stages off the shelf. It's development from scratch, you know? I don't know.
To that,
No,
Kevin, I would
that's right.
honestly say, I would counter that to say that I would like to believe that our chances of success here beyond Ignition are much greater than before. Because if you rewind back to 2017 when the contract for the USA was sent out, for example, or signed, like what else existed in the it wasn't Artemis back then, but in our country's lunar program, what else existed then that was able to support? There was nothing.
The thing
Nothing.
is, this argument works only if you focus on the moon program. Why did it happen on Commercial Crew? It was just send people to the ISS. Why did you keep changing requirements? Oh, the mission changed. No, it was the same all the time. You get what I mean here? If this
I
thing is
do.
documented across multiple different programs that don't have to do even with Artemis, why is it that this keeps happening across multiple differently aligned programs, so to
Refresh
speak?
my memory. What was the
With
changing
the commercial
requirements on-
stations, there's also that as well.
What are the changing requirements for Commercial Crew?
Man,
keep
I don't
saying
remember them all the top of my head. I'm not an encyclopedia, even if I wished I was. But I know from reports that I've read in the past from both the OIG and the GAO talking about this in particular for many other programs, including Commercial Crew and Commercial Cargo. Like, this is not just an Artemis thing. This is something that has happened with other programs as well in the past. And it has had nothing to do with priorities. It's just something that NASA often do. They just say, yeah, let's just change this, because they keep coming up with different things that they want to do. As the design keeps progressing, I don't know.
Well, Alex,
how to give you I don't know. We want a cup holder now. You know, if it was designing a car or something like that, we want a cup holder now. Oh, we want a horn that sounds like this, right? Like, imagine it's sort of that thing, and it just keeps delaying stuff.
Well, where I was trying to go with that was, if we try to be present, and as hard as that may be, let's just be present right now. Given the current requirements, and I'm speaking just for Artemis here, because that is what the hardware that we are talking about is in relation to. If we compare what is almost ready or in development now compared to what was in development or existent back then, 10, 11 years, there's a stark difference. Just for example, SLS flies and is operational right now. We just flew Artemis 2. Orion exists and is operational. We just flew people on it for the very first time, and it was a resounding success. Starship exists in one way, shape, or form. Granted, I know the one caveat there is, yes, it hasn't reached orbit. Yes, we haven't seen any HLS hardware, and recent announcements for the Artemis 3 program are just a version 3 Starship with a docking adapter modified onto it, right? I understand that, and obviously Blue Origin is in a whole kerfuffle on its own with them losing their pad, with the NG4 vehicle having a major temper tantrum. But going back to the original point that I made, and that I believe our chances of success are much greater this time, and that our chances of repeating history this time are nowhere near as great because of what hardware we already have in our hands, again, in combination with the goals that we have set out for ourselves, and also to tie back in the consequences again if we get it wrong. Couple all of these things together in one bowl or cup or whatever you want to call it. We have just given what we have at hand, both hardware in development and operational, our chances of success here are much greater because of that.
Max,
yes, sir.
I have a question. What happens in 2 years when there's a new administration?
That's a great question.
2 or 3
I don't know.
Isn't that really what it comes down to? Is NASA's priorities change with every administration? Like I agree 100% with this administration's plan for NASA.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens in a couple years when it's a new administration?
I mean, go ahead, Sawyer.
I think that's why there's such a push now, and I think that's what Jared's kind of trying to do, is cut the stuff from the previous administrations, do what he can with what he has now, because he knows that those things aren't going to be ready until after his administration, and who knows what's going to happen then. I feel like, that's why, flat out, that's why there's the goal of getting to the moon by 2028. It's while this administration is still in office, while he still has a say in what NASA can do and can direct the program the way he wants to. Is that going to potentially be harmful for whoever follows? Maybe, depending on what stays and what gets cut and how far along the Artemis program goes. But I think NASA's plan originally was, hey, we've already started this. There's no way that we can stop it now. And that was kind of how they got away with it. That's my vibe, at least. Now they're trying to say that's not the case anymore.
I just don't understand how we think a presidential term change is going to screw their plans. I mean, SLS has spanned 4 presidential administrations. Well, 3 technically.
And how many design changes in
and
those
all of them wanted to cancel it.
Yeah. How many design changes? Well, anyway. Also, by the way, great to hear from NSF's newest commentator from yesterday, Kevin Michael Reed, too. Sorry,
I was a host. I was not a commentator.
You're the 5th trencher.
You're the 5th.
a not so commentator.
From above.
There you go.
I tried to get Ryan in here too, and he had to work. I wanted to make a huge party. Yeah, I know, right? Who does that? Works for jerks.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me go back to the panel here. Thanks some people. Read through them here really quick. Shazbert Toddbot saying, I want KMR to talk about rockets like yesterday. There you go. You got your wish. Wilbo, thank you for all of your pieces of support here. Also adding that I love that EJ told KMR, get out of here. I mean,
sorry.
This is something that isn't new. It's just, I guess, new for when we're actually live on the air. And then Gaw5024 saying, NASA needs a lesson in better. Later is the enemy of good enough now. When will then be now? Soon.
Yes.
Also, Will be pointing out, yes, we did hit 1.5 million subscribers here on YouTube. So thank you all for that. We are very appreciative.
Let's go.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah. 1.5 M, baby. That's awesome. So, yes, thank you, everybody. And then, John, thank you, Mr. Coffee, for gifting 1 Red Team memberships. Love it. Throwing all the references in there. So, here's the thing now. You thought one OIG report was bad. What if I told you there was another OIG report But it was also
there's
bad.
more.
Here,
It is
have
also
more
bad,
of this
yeah.
cow poop.
But wait, there's
Here.
more misery.
Here, have more.
Alex.
Eat. Oh, eat it up. It's gonna be delicious. It's like,
It goes in the misery hole.
that's right.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
We have a video about this on our second channel, by the way, Breaking Space. And yeah, so it's about launch infrastructure by NASA. And this is not like just looking at Launch Complex 39B and I don't know the Lock Sphere or anything like that. No, because did you know that NASA gives a lot of like gaseous helium and gaseous nitrogen to multiple pads across the Space Coast?
No.
And did you know that they also supply power to LC-39A and LC-39B, including, that precious Starship pad?
No.
Yeah. So, and also, did you remember that the Kennedy Space Center is the way to go to the Space Force Station right on the Cape Canaveral side of things, which means the roads and bridges that are on the Kennedy side, that's part of NASA's thing. And there's thousands of trucks that go on those roads every single year. So what's the status of all of that infrastructure? Yeah, it's not great. It's really not great. Yeah. How to begin with this? So the power lines, for example, they're corroded. They're crumbling away, basically. They're from like the 1960s, and they have had little to no maintenance in years, not even years, like decades, some of it. They still have the old wiring and things like that. There are examples and pictures of that. Maybe, Kevin, that will be page 15 of that very nice report that we were showing there. There are pictures of the state of some of this infrastructure, and you will not like that. I can tell you that. As soon as I saw these pictures, I was like, oh, and Artemis depends on this infrastructure. Just saying. That's part of the power systems at Kennedy Space Center that supply power to 39B, where SLS launches from, and 39A, where not only Falcon Heavy launches from, but Starship should debut soon from that as well. And that's the state of some of the equipment. Yeah. That's not great, right?
Good grief.
That's
now-
Orangeburg pipe. They're using Orangeburg pipe as a conduit.
Yeah.
It's like tar and I don't remember. Ground up wood fibers and coal tar is what those pipes are made out of. They have a 50-year life. They were installed in the mid 60s. So
they're already 10 years overdue.
So do the math, like,
Yeah, exactly. The transformers, they were replaced. Some of them are a little bit newer, but the newer ones, it's like 1990s.
95. There's 3 transformers. One of them is from the Apollo era. 2 of them were upgraded in 95 at the C5 substation.
They're still 30 years old. So
yep.
They have some life to them, but there's some corrosion, as you can see there, already there. But look, it's not all doom and gloom, okay? So I'm going to give you the good news. I already showed you like an example of the bad news. I could go on into much more bad news. You can watch the dedicated video in our secondary channel. Here we're about the debates. The good news is some things are already being in place. They're putting together already plans for infrastructure repairs and upgrades, especially because all of these things are also supplying an increased demand and launch from the Cape. Now, it is true that some of these things will no longer be a problem, at least for a while. Because, for example, during the launch campaign for Artemis 2 and New Glenn, they were sort of, neck and neck. And there's like a blackout of helium and nitrogen supply for Blue Origin, while SLS is on the pad doing its thing as well, because they use all of that for purging and releasing all of the volatile things that you don't want in certain parts of the rocket or certain parts of the pad and things like that. Also, while ULA with Vulcan is out there, they also had problems when it was out there, I think for its second launch, and New Glenn was trying its first launch, or at least like pre-launch testing and things like that. They just, like, yeah, hang on. Like, there's also the trucks and everything. They have to widen roads and all that stuff. They're trying their best to try and solve all of this, but budgets are not coming through as quickly as they really wanted. This is the next slide, I think, that Kevin has prepared. Yeah, they're going down a little bit. There's a bit of an uptick in 2025, and you know why? Because that's there's the actual budget, and then there's the infrastructure, the actual budget. Yeah, and so it goes up a little bit because they got a little bit of money out of the so-called big beautiful bill and all that stuff from last year. So they got that money, and this report actually tells NASA, hey, use that money for infrastructure, as if, they really needed to tell NASA. They probably know about this. But it's also very complicated. They have a lot of red tape, and I got surprised by the fact that they had to go around some of the rules in order to be able to, like, there are companies like SpaceX that are really begging NASA, please, we want to help you, and they can't because of regulations and laws and multiple different things aren't in place, because it could seem as if, NASA is biased against other companies and things like that. And it's like, but we really want this to go. And so one of the things that they were able to go around some of these rules and do, it's like, for example, widening the Southern Causeway that goes sort of next to the Crowderway so that they can, in the future, roll out Starships 239A, because that's a very important thing. So that, ships like this one can roll down that road and being able to do that without disrupting a lot of the traffic and things like that. They have also, like, for example, SpaceX on their own, they have built their own mega packs at Launch Complex 39A so that they don't have to depend as much on the power by the Kennedy Space Center. It's still not enough for the launch cadence that they need. And as I said, there's also Blue Origin and ULA, all of these other folks that are also affected because they share similar resources. But again, even if the companies wanted to help NASA, right, they can't. And that was my first question in this sort of discussion about this. Like, should companies that fly from the spaceport pay for this instead of having NASA having to pay for all of this? Because they're the ones that are using this. So...
Yeah. Yes. They should have to. I mean, they should have to pay for infrastructure maintenance because, Alex, what pays for all this infrastructure out at the Cape and maintenance of facilities? I don't know if do you guys know? I actually am asking.
Taxpayers?
Your tax dollars?
We do.
Your tax dollar. Specifically what NASA program? Anybody?
It had the actual name.
It's big.
It's a very long one.
And it's orange. And we just canceled a bunch of hardware associated with it. We were talking about it 15 minutes ago.
Part of Artemis?
Artemis programs, the programs that are at facilities, that the NASA facilities that they use pay for the maintenance of said facilities. Okay, so if the Artemis program is using the VAB,
this is a different line item on the budget.
You sure?
Yeah, I remember because I did the budget thing. Hang on, I have it here. Construction and Environmental Compliance and Restoration Office, and it got in.
That's construction. That's not maintenance.
But it's within that office. It's like part of that. It got $185 million last year for the entirety of NASA. This is not just NASA's Kennedy Space Center. This is for the entirety of NASA. Under the what's it called? The Working Families Tax Cut or Big Beautiful Bill, whatever. I think they were given like $1 billion, so that but it's spread out between like multiple years. Trying to look it up because I have here a spreadsheet of this. Yeah, they were giving $1 billion.
You have a
they
spreadsheet?
Were given, yeah, I have of the budget. There's $1 billion, 115 is about improvements, and 800 million is about center projects. Basically, going across different NASA centers and having to repair cracks and all that stuff, so that things are not crumbling. Because if this is bad for Kennedy, trust me, there are other centers out there that are also in need of infrastructure repairs and work. And yeah, launches keep going up.
if I remember rightly, one of the other issues they have from that report is the fact that if you have New Glenn launching, given the amount of gases and propellants and stuff that it needs, and you also had an Artemis launch at the same time, the infrastructure would not be able to support both. And likely, given NASA's priority, that means a Blue launch could potentially be delayed by like a month or two where there's just a blackout period, which, I mean, if you're trying to launch the lunar lander and then launch Artemis to it, that's a bit of a problem, isn't it?
Yeah,
Mhm.
this is the video.
Yes,
That
I
we made.
agree.
But yeah, I mean, it's just weird because like we got to a point where I have other questions, I guess, to pose here for debate, where it's like, should the United States just consider outright like build a different spaceport, like find another place? Is it just too many rockets in a very small place?
I think SpaceX is already doing that. I think the writing's on the
Yeah.
wall. That's why
Louisiana,
they bought the Louisiana site.
Yeah.
But then how come Blue wants to expand? How come 48 is a thing that
Yeah, Blue
exists
Origin
even though
also,
there's no company yet?
Yeah. They
I mean,
say that Blue Origin wants to expand. They plan 2 different launch pads, but they're planning on a third one for New Glenn, maybe north of LC-39, and it's like, man.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. I think the other thing people forget that the hardest part with dealing with a lot of the infrastructure that is buried underneath, so the lines that run under both KSC and Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, is that all of that land is on the Merritt Island Wildlife Reserve. So it is protected land. So you get into a situation kind of like you had a bit with Starship of you have to get approval from a regulatory thing to do it. You have to get environmental assessments done, all of that. So you're dealing with a lot more bureaucracy, a lot more red tape just to do anything, even if, oh, well, we dug this 50, 60 years ago. Yeah, the EPA also didn't exist 50, 60 years ago. There's a lot of things that have changed since then, and I'm sure that would delay things even more. So it's one of those where it's a solution that they would have to start now to be able to fix later. But at the same time, they're also predicting, in a couple of years, there'll be 1,000 launches a year, which A, wouldn't be able to support that, but B, we know that's still a ways out. So it's one of those where now that the problem is addressed, this is when you have to start now to get everything in order, to get everything set in time, so that by the time you are upping your cadence to 300-400 launches a year plus, the infrastructure, all the approvals have gone through, all the check marks, I's dotted, T's crossed, have happened.
Yeah, the report also talks about that, where it's like, okay, you have your plans for repairs and a few upgrades here and there to modernize some systems and whatever, but are you really upping the scale of some of these, right? Like, for example, the power example, they are trying to get through and repair all that, but the plan, like the things that are going to be introduced that are newer are still not even capable to reach the scale that, for example, Starship, even what it's currently already approved, I think it's like 44 launches out of 39A, it's not even capable of providing that supply of power, what they have planned. Like, they are repairing and upgrading for a near future, for a 2027, 2028. Right? They are not upgrading for a 2040 future, if you will, like 10, 15, 20 years in the future, where launches out of the Cape are in the thousands, not in the low hundreds, right? Like maybe we had just a bit of over 100 launches just last year for the first time. And it worries me that they still have that problem of like not even be able to get any help from anybody. Like, even if these companies want it.
I'm telling you that, yeah, he can't get help from NASA can't get help from, they can't charge people for the infrastructure upgrades, right? But
yeah,
and their construction bill gets shorted and the maintenance bill goes to the Artemis program, guys. I'm telling you, like it's
like the ideal, I guess, will have been something like what the FAA is doing now, where they are they're asking for a fee, for a launch fee to the companies. It's pennies for the companies because it's something like 4,000, 5,000 per launch or something like that, which at the end of the day, even with full reusability, even if this baby starts flying fully reusable by $1 million a flight or something like that, it's still pennies, basically, compared to the cost of the launch. But over time, because there are dozens of these launches, the FAA recovers all of that, and it's like, okay, we can pay for the Office of Commercial Spaceflight and all that stuff. I wonder if something like that were perhaps the solution of this, something that it's like maybe just pennies for the companies launching out of the Cape, but when you add up all of them, all of these launches are planned and everything, NASA says, okay, we can take this money and fund our upgrades and repairs and all that stuff.
Wait a minute. I got a question. Did I see that right? Sawyer, you were talking about, or did I hear that right? So you're talking about they're doing thousands of launches. What are they doing? 1,000 launches out of 39A and 39B? I doubt that.
Well, between the entire Space Coast, and obviously SpaceX wants to hit 1,000 launches
that's
a year.
Why is it NASA's job to provide the entire Space Coast with commodities? Why is that a thing? That's what?
Because that's how it started, and the ball kept rolling. So, but that's sort of the point that I was trying to make here. That perhaps it's time that regulations change and the companies can do that investment on their own.
I think it's also worth mentioning as well that both the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station and the Kennedy Space Center are managed completely differently and are under completely different management. The KSC obviously operates under NASA, and the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station is under the umbrella of the U.S. Air and Space Force, which is in broader terms under the Defense, the Department of Defense agency. So
that's the point that I'm trying to make, Bags. They got some of that defense money. Why don't we use defense money to upgrade the infrastructure?
The pockets for the pockets for U.S. defense are much deeper than it is for NASA. So, and also,
why does NASA have to foot the bill? That's stupid.
We also a majority of these missions going forward, especially when it comes to Starship, are going to be taking place on Space Force soil at Space Launch Complex 37, with up to two pads for now. And maybe more in the future over either at 37 or elsewhere. Maybe if pad 49 comes back north of pad B, we'll find out. I don't think it's going to happen at this point. If it does, it's at least 5 to 10 years off, at least. But the report only mentions the Cape under, in context, it's only noting its adjacency to KSC should transportation network regarding the networks of transportation and the nature of operations. So it's one thing to go to NASA and ask for help or offer your help, and it's another to go to the Space Force or any DoD entity and offer your help. And I think there may be some change or some leeway in operations there from the DoD if SpaceX offers to help boost their infrastructure, because SpaceX has and will continue to launch DoD payloads, i.e. classified payloads, spy satellites, things of that nature. So I don't want to use the term unfair, but there is a long road to go if Starship is to be supported in the way that SpaceX wants it to be, because just given the imagery that we saw in the OIG report of just the power network is currently looking in terms of its state and how old it is, there's a chance one Starship launch does severe damage to the pad and its electrical infrastructure.
Now, here's something I want to point out, though. You talk about, if they would be able to chip in and things like that. There's a section in this document called Statutory Funding Barriers. And this is kind of important if you don't know it. It says that although approximately 70% of launches supported by NASA since 2020 have been commercial missions, which have increasingly driven demand for and where on NASA-owned launch facilities and support infrastructure, the agency is not authorized to receive capital infrastructure investments from commercial partners. Any commercial investment that improves NASA-owned infrastructure is considered augmentation of NASA's appropriations and would violate the Anti-Deficiency Act. It's literally illegal for a company that is using this to actually touch it, to put money in to help upgrade it. It goes on to say, yeah, Space Force side, they have the authority to accept it. That's fine. They can implement the changes there with help from providers. NASA side stuff, as of now, it is illegal. There is a bill, the Space Ready Act, that was introduced in the Senate in July of 2025, but hasn't fully passed everything yet, hasn't fully been approved yet. So right now, even if you wanted to improve it with help from the providers, you legally can't.
And there's only so much SpaceX can do at the pad as well, because technically they do not own Launch Complex 39A. It's under a current 20-year lease, and they're going to likely extend that when this current term is up. So ultimately, go ahead.
I was going to say, imagine with all of the money that they just got, how much more improvements they could just say, hey, here, let's just do it. Let's just improve this. Like it's crumbling. It's getting, rotten, and like, let's just fix it. I can see them trying to be like, oh, let us help you.
I mean, the fixed service structure, which has been there since at the end of Apollo, there up on the concrete mound, which supported the entire space shuttle program there, and also actually those tower segments that were used to build the FSS were used on the Apollo mobile launchers. So that goes back a long ways, and SpaceX had to use that as their first crew capable launch pad at 39A, launching people for the first time in 2020. And we recently saw, I think when was that? When they took down the crew access arm, we saw how long that crane was hooked up to the arm, and how long it seemed to take them to get it off. Like, who knows what problems they were running into when that happened. So it's old. I mean, the KSC, as we know it, was, I think, formed in 1962. I think back then it was known either as Cape Kennedy, or maybe there was a name before that. But the Space Force Station has roots all the way back to 1949 as first a missile testing range, and then obviously it's evolved into what we know it now. Stuff's old.
And there's a line here to keep it to this part. And it is true, some people are pointing it out, that yes, the U.S. Space Force, they do have the authority to accept funds, services, and equipment from commercial partners to support infrastructure improvements at its launch facilities. The problem is the range or scope of things that the Space Force does is things like security, which is well-funded, at least as far as I know. There's things like weather and support about clearing zones and things like that. All of those things, they have had help, and they have been able to do that. For example, SpaceX has their own weather station as well, and their own weather equipment and things like that. That is on top of what the Space Force does. Like, there are these few things that they are able to do. Here, we're talking about things that are completely separate from it. It is true, for example, that Space Launch Complex 40 does not have this problem, because SpaceX also built like separate ways of getting their helium and nitrogen. For example, they've built like a new tank farm for it at LC at Space Launch Complex 40. But again, Vulcan and Blue Origin, they still have their problems as well. Ryan was pointing in the back channel, oh boy, I hope there's not a planned way of sort of like having, SLS and New Glenn launching in the same week, sort of thing, right? And that's Artemis 3. And they have this problem because they get both, even though they are in opposite corners of the Space Coast, they both get supplied gaseous helium and gaseous nitrogen from the Kennedy Space Center pipeline system, even though one it's on the Space Force side and the other is on the Kennedy side. But NASA provides those services. Again, the power systems, those go to 39B and 39A, including the Starship launch pad as well. And SpaceX had to put the mega packs and all that stuff, and even then it's not fully enough, because they will need like a nuclear power station there to power things like the air separation unit and the methane liquefier and all that stuff that they are planning. You know in which place they are building that instead? At Space Launch Complex 37. Why? Because there they can do that stuff, because of that line that it says the Space Force does have authority to accept funds, services, equipment, all that stuff that they're
Fellas,
talking about.
I have a question, and that this might be a little bit too spicy. You guys tell me if you want to.
Oh God,
You want to answer
bracing.
this?
We like spicy. This is
Bracing.
If you don't like it, you send it right back to me, okay?
I'm bracing.
If the idea of NASA not being able to have capital investment from private partners isn't allowed because it's seen as an unethical thing or quid pro quo, why is the Space Force allowed to do it? Like, why is NASA subjective to ethics here, but the Space Force is not? Question.
Because I would like to think, I don't have, this is just me spitballing. NASA has to operate in the public eye, and that sort of funds transfer would be, again, deemed as sort of like either favorable or like not bribe. Bribe is the wrong word, but gain favor with a public agency, whereas the Department of the Space Force and Air Force and DoD, they don't have to report to anybody except those in DC. They don't have to report anything to us.
Who runs the military? Like, what's the highest rank in the
Girls, we run this world.
The military has the first, second, third, and fourth space programs in the United States, and then NASA is the fifth, and that's out of the military.
The priorities of defense far outweigh those. I hate to say this. This is not my opinion, but the priorities of defense are more often than not deemed a greater are deemed a greater priority than those of NASA science and NASA missions, for example. I think that's probably the kindest way that I can put that.
There are also different ways of funding as well, to be fair, like, to give them the benefit of the doubt. But, yeah.
Does that answer your question, EJ? You look puzzled.
EJ said had the best facial expressions this whole show.
Yes.
Sorry.
It's a shame we don't do the GIFs anymore.
A few people have pointed that out in chat.
It would be
the point is that it's ridiculous that we draw that line of ethics with NASA, and then NASA has to pay more money because they have to be ethical, even though they get shoehorned on budget constantly. It's just a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit aggravating, that's all. Like, why doesn't the DoD fund the infrastructure on their own Space Force station? NASA provides the commodities, helium and nitrogen, to all of their pads. You're telling me they don't have the budget to build out a pipeline to service the pads? NASA has to foot the bill on the maintenance? That's okay. Also,
probably have the money for 10 pipelines like that, or 15 of them, or whatever.
Starpipe?
Oh no.
That's later.
I hate that that's actually a thing.
I know. I hate it too.
Anyway, I think one way to kind of wrap this up was a super chat that we had here from Bideford, which thank you for all of your support this stream, Bideford. She said, can each one tell me one positive opinion going forward for NASA into the future? Just one positive view each, please.
Our chances of success with the Artemis program are greater than they were 3 or 4 years ago. That is my take.
EJ, if you have yours ready, go for it.
Yeah.
What was it? Alex, you go. I'll think about it again.
Come on. I'm still thinking about it.
Oh, okay. All right. Look. Jared, the way Jared wants to do things and the way NASA Ignition sets itself up, it could be open to the same problems that got us into this position in the first place. But the difference here is that, look, instead of putting the programs on life support, Jared just said, no, 555, you're done. Get out of here. And that's the precedent that's different comparatively to the Band-Aid fixes that we've had in the past. All right. That coupled with the momentum that commercial has pretty much ensures a moon landing soon, barring some catastrophically bad event. We're going. Oh, we're going. The question of how kind of remains to be seen, but we're going. Oh, this is happening. We've already been there. Artemis 2. we've been out of low Earth orbit. And I think that's easily overshadowed here and with these reports, but that's happening. Are we splitting hairs left and right here about like how it's going to happen? Sure, but this is happening. Even if the Artemis program doesn't do anything or gets canceled or whatever, which I don't think it will. Like SpaceX is still going to the moon. We're still going to have Starship. The odds of getting back to the moon are very, 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 very good.
Alex, your turn.
Oh boy.
I hate
I
that.
would agree that
I hate that
that
we have to think really hard about that, or some of us do.
I would agree at least on sort of the common feeling that at least the wheels are in motion and it doesn't seem like they're going to be stopped for getting people back on the moon, right? At least it feels like that. I don't know. It's just like the argument that I made before, where it's like, let's wait and see what's going to happen with this, right? There's only one way to find out, which is wait and see and yeah, let everything just take its course.
I'll say we actually have a path forward. That's the first time I feel like in a long time where we can say we have a path forward. We have had, it was always, Artemis 2 is going to happen, then Artemis 3 will be the moon landing. It was always, it's going to. Artemis 2 happened. The Artemis 3 core stage is already stacked inside the VAB. I saw a photo someone took of the heat shield for an Orion spacecraft making its way into the Kennedy Space Center. Hardware is arriving. We had the train a couple of weeks ago with the SRB segments. It's not just a path forward that we're seeing the hardware come with it now. So that is I guess the most confident I've felt going forward that we can actually hit timelines.
Slight correction there, if I may, Sawyer. I don't think the core stage has been stacked. The SRBs have to come first, and that should be soon.
He's talking about in the Futuramic jig, dude.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Yep.
I got you.
I think he meant like with the engine section.
It's
got it.
Vertical,
okay.
I should say. Yeah.
Fully
integrated, but yeah.
Yeah, and Sawyer, just to build off that more, when we talked to Jared 2 weeks ago on the Flame Trench 100, which was really cool, by the way, it kind of dawned on me, like, is using SLS with a Centaur standardized to get to a Starship HLS or a Blue Moon and then go out to the moon, is that the best architecture? No, but it's not the best. It's not a Saturn V, right? But it's good enough. And Alex, you were speaking to this. Get it 70% right. It's not like the most optimized 100% great architecture, but it will get you there. I think that's the most important thing, right? Like, we have a lunar program. Doing that whole landing on the moon thing. That's kind of important. Just putting it out there.
Here's another thing that NASA's doing. Keeping people alive on the space station continuously for over 20 years. Doing amazing scientific research. We have the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope that is now at KSC, ready to launch this year. That's all NASA. Can't forget that stuff, too.
Not just this year, but in probably a couple months' time.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, yeah. Finally, Falcon Heavy. Second flight this year. First one for NASA in a while. So,
yeah.
All of that still to come, though. As much as we hate waiting. I really hate waiting. I also hate that you guys are going to have to wait to see what I just saw this past week over at the California Science Center in Los Angeles. See the transition there? Anyway, the California Science Center and the Samuel Ocean Air and Space Center over there has a brand new display for Space Shuttle Endeavor. You may remember that it was one of the 4 museums to get the space shuttles, where you had Enterprise that went to the Intrepid in New York City. Discovery then took its place over at the Smithsonian at Dulles at Udvar-Hazy. Atlantis went to the Kennedy Space Center, and then Endeavor went out to the West Coast. It was originally kind of displayed in a horizontal hangar, but then they wanted to display it vertically, and guess what? They did. Check that out. I mean, this is a full stack space shuttle display They have one of the two payload bay doors open. There is a launch gantry with an elevator that you'll be able to go up and down as well. It's amazing. It is, you come in, there's this big door that lifts up after a movie that reveals with the smoke coming out, all of this, and it's just there. I won't say exactly what, but it's similar to Atlantis's. I won't spoil Atlantis's because that one's amazing. This one's still really good too. But it's just the grandeur of it, the height of it. You can go around it, full 360 degrees. You can go underneath it. Eventually, see that little platform up at the top? You'll be able to go onto that and go eye to eye with the flight deck right up to it and see inside of it. I mean, they have it modeled exactly as the interior was. Sorry about my terrible camera work. For STS-118, which was the Endeavor's first flight in the return to flight era, as well as launching Barbara Morgan, the first educator in space following STS-51L. And the museum said, hey, we like education. I figure that's quite appropriate. Plus, they also had the Space Hab module, which you saw in there as well as the docking adapter to the ISS. I will say the one inside the orbiter is not the real docking adapter. The real one is actually on display further down in the floor area where you'll be able to actually go up and see the real one. But I mean, look at that. It was just absolutely gorgeous. And again, you're talking mostly flight hardware. You're talking the solid rocket booster segments are ones that had previously flown, just like actual shuttle missions. They were kind of selected from a whole cacophony of different missions that flew. So it's not like all of them flew on STS-118 or something. It's from different ones they stacked together that they got from Northrop. And then you have the external tank, which is ET-94. For those who remember ET-94, that was a flight-ready external tank that they were going to use. However, its next flight, it was going to use the flight after STS-107, which was Columbia, where you had the foam that fell off that caused the loss of vehicle and crew. So they used this one to conduct that investigation, see what went wrong. They cut into it. They took pieces of the foam off of it. So it was kind of a mess. So they had it on standby if needed. Then they said, hey, NASA might want this for the Artemis program. And eventually they said, you know what? We don't need it for Artemis. So California scientists said, cool, we're taking it. The one negative I have to say about the external tank, though, it's not all Sophie. It is not all spray-on foam insulation. They had to put some material that is similar to it, of course, to fill the gaps, and they painted it orange. So that's not the actual Sophie. They said that obviously it would change colors in the UV light, so to make it more uniform for the display, that's a big old cans of paint that they used to make it that color orange, I'm sorry to say. But one thing that I saw asked when I was posting about it everywhere is California is kind of known for something, earthquakes. And it's like, well, if you're going to stack this thing vertical, the way they're so protective of the orbiters and how they all had to be climate controlled and specially protected and this and that, how is it not going to just fall over? Because keep in mind, it's just being held by its normal struts there. I talked to the curator of the exhibit over there, Perry Roth Johnson, and he went into some of the details of how it's actually held in and how it survives the earthquakes. And EJ, I know you're going to love this one with some of the factual stuff in it.
The principle we started with is basically to withstand an earthquake, the building structural engineer determined that if we can withstand flight loads, we can withstand seismic loads. And so the building engineer came up with a bunch of seismic load cases, and for all of the main attach points between the orbiter and the tank and the boosters, we basically built real flight hardware with Inconel bolts that were the same spec as flight bolts so that we could withstand those earthquakes. That goes from the forward bolt that connects the nose of Endeavor to the tank, down to the 8 bolts that connect the bottom of the solid rocket boosters to the museum floor. One interesting fact about those bolts is in real life, the hold down studs that connected the boosters to the launch pad were only about 2.5 feet long, I believe. Ours are 10 feet long because we have a giant concrete pad with seismic isolators underneath. And it sounds kind of crazy, but the easiest thing to do is just go all the way through it and put a nut on the bottom and a nut on the top.
I'm guessing those aren't frangible then.
They are not fragile, no. But we did have to pre-tension them to about 500,000 pounds to stretch them out before we put the nuts on them, so that you don't have any bolt bending or anything. It's all pre-tensioned, just like it would have been in real life.
I love that. Isn't that so cool? They basically had to make it as close to real life as possible because, yeah, turns out rockets shake a lot during launch. So if they happen to shake during an earthquake, it's totally cool. So we'll just add a whole bunch of extra strength to it. Just make it, tension it like the real thing, make it a little deeper into the ground, and boom, there you go. I have to say, Ryan Hayton in the back channel said that's nuts. Pun token avoided.
Dude. Come on.
But I mean, the exhibit is so amazing. I love that they have the payload bay door open where you can see things inside of it and basically see how it was. You see there they have one of the payload bay liner panels removed, so you can kind of see what it looks like on the inside there, some of the inner workings, the nuts and bolts and stuff. And I talked to, you're going to be shocked at this one, folks. I talked to an astronaut about it.
Sawyer Flex.
I know, of course I had to get the Sawyer Flex in here. I talked to Danny Olivas, who amazingly did not fly on Endeavor, but did have a role with Endeavor in that he worked on the CAIB and the plans after the Columbia investigation, and they needed to use an orbiter to check out, and the one they happened to have ready in the hangar basically was Endeavor. So he worked closely with Endeavor, and obviously the shuttles are quite similar in their design. So I asked him, I'm like, dude, you've flown on the space shuttle. I mean, there's got to be something cool that you know about the shuttle that other people might not know about. So if someone wants to go to the exhibit, which is in the heart of Los Angeles, it's right near the LA Football Club Stadium for all of the football/soccer fans, and near the Olympic Stadium that was built there. I mean, I asked him, what cool stuff can you see? And this, the second clip, was Danny Olivas's response to me. I thought it was really cool.
Well, I like to point out the monkey fur.
Oh, explain, please.
So on the sill of the payload bay door there, you can see there's kind of like a white fibrous material. Okay, that's actually it's meant to be like a seal. Now, this is not a pressurized compartment coming in, into and going into space and coming back home. But they got to keep like dirt and debris out of it. So that monkey fur would be covered with like a material. It's called aluminum disulfide, which is kind of like a lubricant. And the reason I mentioned that is because the yellow handrails that you see along the sill there, that's how you used to be able to traverse when you're doing a spacewalk. And you wanted to stay away from the monkey fur because that material would transfer to your gloves. And next thing you know, everything you touch would have like, you get that grease all over the place. And so stay away from the monkey fur. That's what we always trained in when we were working on the shuttle ops. But again, the way that they have it displayed here is really impressive because it's all those little details that made the space shuttle program the success that it was. And so you can look at any one part, piece of component, and there's elaborate stories behind it.
It was so cool talking with him on that. But yeah, the official exhibit opens November 13th. The museum is free, but there may be a small fee, and there will be a time reservation required because, yeah, it's going to be an absolute madhouse there. So I highly recommend going to see it once it opens. Not all the exhibits are even on display yet. Again, that viewing gantry wasn't open yet. They have a re-entry slide, similar to what they have at KSC, but a little more advanced. And all of the stuff there. So the main thing I wanted to bring this up because I wanted to answer all of your guys' questions, both here on the panel and in chat. If you have any questions about the exhibit and stuff, let me know, because I talked to a whole bunch of people there, and it was beautiful. I will not say West Coast, Best Coast, but I will say Endeavor Best Shuttle, and the display was unbelievable.
Can I say something kind of controversial, kind of spicy?
Absolutely.
It bothers me that they chose to display it with one of the payload bay doors open, because it's not exactly how it looked on the pad ready for launch in that case. And my OCD is going nuts because the door's open. I know, I get it. I get we can see Space Lab in there, and they have some panels removed to see the innards or the gizzards of Endeavor, but it's not truly how it looked on the pad if one of the doors are open.
I wish it was something like it's a time thing where it's like it's closed for like an hour, and then maybe at the top of the hour it gets open for like 10 minutes or something like that.
Or maybe they have
You
like
know?
a period
And
of
then it
time where like
closes.
where 1 week it's open, 1 week it's closed, or something like that. I mean, if you look at it from the right angle, you can't see the open payload bay door, and that's fine. But it's not true to how it looked on the pad, and also the yellow braces there on the payload bay doors also are not as well. But
Wait. No, that's not right. The yellow braces on the payload bay doors would be there so the rotating service structure can interface with the payload bay doors for vertically integrated payloads.
But for launch, I get that, but for launch,
that's not what you said.
No
you
one
said
said
on the
it's
pad.
in an actual launch configuration. It's as it would be on the launch pad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what you said. You said on the pad.
It doesn't have a crew access arm or anything, because it would have been cool if there had been like at least it would give you like a way of peeking into the orbiter or something like that.
I mean, you're going to be able to look into it. They just didn't do the crew access arm. They have the gantry with the elevator that goes up. They just didn't add an access arm in White Room.
And you can be like, I'm obviously asking you because you were there.
Yeah,
and I was not. Like, do they have also access to like the bottom and everything? Like you can walk under the engines and all that stuff?
There is video in the folder there of me
Even
going
though they are
completely
not
underneath.
real engines?
Under the engines, under the ohms. Yeah, they're not. The inner workings, all that stuff obviously is gutted, and they've kind of put the replicas in. They do have RS-25 there, I believe, so.
Yeah, nozzles on a stick, like Chris would say.
Yeah. But, I mean, the fact that they had to pre-tension the rods and everything to hold it in like they did with the actual orbiter. And again, as EJ pointed out, those brace bars there, you kind of need them in 1G as well. When I was talking to the first person, that curator, he basically said, he's like, look, without that, he said they would taco. So that they would kind of fold in under the weight here on 1G. So that's the way that they could still support it in 1G with the doors like that and not have them warp over time.
And now I guess that completes the trifecta of having all three orbiters displayed in three different ways. We have Endeavor, obviously, in a nearly launch-ready stack. We have Atlantis here at the Kennedy Space Center as if it's in orbit with both its payload bay doors open. Then also we have Discovery at the Udvar Hazy Center in DC, as if it had just touched down after a landing with its gear down. So yeah, I mean, I saw Endeavor in it the way it was originally in the hangar, almost on its wheels back in 2019. I think this project was still being talked about. It's like this, exactly like this. 6 years or 7 years ago now. Crikey, 7 years. And I remember them talking about it, or I remember hearing about the project of them transforming the way it was going to be displayed in a near launch configuration. But I never gave it any thought as to when that might actually come to fruition. So it took 7 years, but it's lovely to see it finally come true. But she is a glorious beast nonetheless.
And for those that have been following NSF for a while, you might remember that we actually streamed this.
Yes, we did.
Turned the orbiter vertical. I think that was January 2024, if I'm not mistaken. So over 2 years ago,
yep.
that happened.
Yeah, Jack films that, aka Mr. Abandoner.
Yeah, it was a lengthy. I remember it was a multi-hour procedure, and we were live for the entire procedure.
I think he also.
Cool. I remember.
They had to rotate the whole thing and put it vertically against the stack.
And I think Jack also talked to Garrett Reisman as well.
Yeah, we had live interviews and things like that. It was super cool.
I mean, it's amazing that they stacked it and then built the building around it.
Yeah. I still think Discovery's the best shuttle, though. Just saying.
I mean, got to look at Endeavor, though, in this stack. I mean, come on. Is that not gorgeous?
It is.
And I saw there was a slide on this display as well, just like the one at Atlantis.
Although apparently there's going to be different lights inside of it that change as if you're coming in for different parts of reentry. It's meant to be that same, slope that it would be for reentry, and then a little hack turn to final.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember going to the one at Atlantis, and Max tried to throw me down the slide.
I did. No, I didn't try to throw you down. I tried to convince you. I was trying to thoroughly convince you.
You were trying to get me.
I was just blocking your path, so your only path to walk anywhere was toward the slide.
Both of you were trying to get me to the slide.
Yeah.
It is a good slide.
You did slide? Or you didn't?
I
did. Alex did.
Lame. But yeah. So I'm interested, for those who have seen the different exhibits and everything, which one do you think is the best exhibit? Forget which orbiter you like. Display-wise, from what you've seen from all four of them, even if you've only seen pictures of it, which one do you think is the quote-unquote best, or at least the one that you think is most representative, that you think they did the best justice with it? I don't know how to word it. EJ, you're the shuttle guy with me here. What do you think?
Say it again.
Of the four exhibits, the four different ways that all of the orbiters are displayed for Atlantis, Discovery, Endeavor, and Enterprise, which one do you either like / think is the best / best represents the shuttle and its program and its history?
Oh, okay. I want to give you a non-answer, but I'm going somewhere with it, okay? Hear me out. Look, I think Enterprise at Intrepid, with its tail cone in the approach and landing test configuration, represents a certain a phase of the shuttle program, okay? And then the three orbiters, the three space-worthy orbiters, Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavor, represent the three phases of shuttle operations, right? So you know good and well, for the operations manual, you have Op 100. Op 100 is ascent, 200 is on orbit, 300 is landing, okay? So you have Discovery in a configuration that's very representative of the end of EDL, so at end of mission, right? You have Atlantis, which represents Op 200, on-orbit space applications, and you have Endeavor that's representing launch configuration and payload processing, right? Each orbiter represents three phases of what the shuttle program was about, and Enterprise obviously represents the testing phase of the shuttle program. I think each one is great in its own regard. But if we're going to pick shuttles that are going to be on display from learning from our history, I'm going to have to go with Challenger and Columbia. They're next to Atlantis, and I think that is the best way to learn, the best displayed orbiters to learn about history and make sure you don't repeat it.
That's not where I meant to go with this.
What'd you say, Alex?
Wasn't Challenger actually like on a silo or something like that? It's Columbia, the one that's there, right?
Both of the orbiters are there.
Inside the Atlantis exhibit. So
yeah,
I guess that would.
There's a piece of the payload bay that is on display from Challenger next to Atlantis. And there's also the cockpit windows of Columbia that are also on display, and both are right next to each other. Yes.
So in that case, your answer would be the Atlantis exhibit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess by association.
You picked a different one, so.
They do have a real RS-25, even though the ones on the Atlantis orbiter are like nozzles on sticks, right? They do have an actual RS-25 engine there.
All right, Max, what do you think?
So not taking the actual orbiters into equation.
Right.
So again, I've seen all three orbiters that have gone to space, although when I saw Endeavor, she was in her old configuration, similar to Discovery is now.
Based off of the photos of current displays, then.
That's really tough. It is really tough. I've seen Atlantis a lot. She's a glorious beast in the way she's displayed. I'm going to have to see Endeavor as she is now before I think I answer that question. In person.
All right. Alex?
I mean, I've only seen Atlantis, so it's not like I have a lot of options here. The other ones I've not seen in person, even though they're in my bucket list here. But yeah, probably Atlantis, just because I've been there. Once I go to the other ones, call me back and I'll answer.
It's really hard to pick
down the line.
It's difficult to pick which one you think is on best displayed, because they're all displayed in really, really unique configurations. Obviously, one launch, one in orbit, and one landing. So it's really hard to pick. Because at that point, you're also having to pick which phase of flight is also your favorite, right? And I think everyone tends to gravitate towards launch because that's the most spectacular phase of flight for a lot of people, and that's what has a lot of emphasis on it whenever you see media from past launches or even rockets today. Like launch is the highlight for a lot of people.
It's interesting to me that it being a glider, it is like there's no orbiter in the gliding moment of the flight. You know what I mean, right? Like a hypersonic.
I mean,
like an actual plane-like sort of way.
Enterprise kind of is. At least the original display had it angled up as if it was coming in for touchdown. So,
did it really? I didn't know that.
The original display before Hurricane Sandy came through had it where the rear wheels were on the ground and the nose wheel was up.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Cool. Because yeah, that's sort of like the fourth part. Because it's true that there's the space and launch stuff, but landing, it's not just after you touch down. It's also the landing part. I don't know. It will have been cool to have it with the not with the wheels deployed and everything closed out and all that, just as if it was gliding down to the runway.
I mean, when Endeavor was on display before she was moved to what she is now, I mean, granted, she was on the transport stand, right? But her gear was up, so I guess you could kind of see, it was on the transport stand there, obviously, but the gear is up there, so.
Yeah, but at the time, then there was nothing in a position for launch. Now we have an entire full launch position here.
It would be really sweet if there was a fourth orbiter and they had it on display such to where it was angled up and they had some like orange light coming up from the ground to sort of simulate. Yes, to sort of simulate whether it coming through entry interface.
And people going in there and be like, "Oh, the fans, we are entering." I mean, that would have been cool. To be fair, yeah. We write this down, somebody. Right?
Write it down. Write it down.
There's one of the space hab modules as well that's outside of the orbiter that you can go see too. You can see that there. And there was also a cool one where, again, you can go underneath it. You can see, the body flap. You can see the bottom of the external tank. You can see the hold down things that he was talking about on them. See there, you can go basically all the way underneath it. There's people right up against the SRB segments there. And yes, you can look up into the fake engines, which people are still going to look at it and go, "Oh my God, those are the real engines on it."
Injector plate, ITAR.
Yeah, exactly. But I will say,
I have a question, Sawyer.
Yes.
Where it was fenced out around the tail, are they building a permanent fence there, or is that just there temporarily?
That I don't know. They didn't say what they were going to end up doing around that area.
Because that is like you could walk up and just touch that, and I fear that somebody would have bad intentions and harm Endeavor in some way. The tail, because you could literally.
I was gonna say it's not like the foam tiles or anything, or the tiles are like foam where you can just scratch it off or anything. No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal.
I mean, if only you had a shirt that showed what they looked like, Max.
Yeah, no, weird, right? If only we had a shirt or piece of merch that showed you what they looked like. Or the tiles from Atlantis. So,
all right. I will say though, when it comes to, I've seen every shuttle display. So all of the originals, so including Enterprise pre-Sandy, post-Sandy, Endeavor pre-stack and post-stack now. I think it is going to be extremely, extremely tight between Endeavor and Atlantis. I mean, the Atlantis reveal, I won't spoil it, but that brought tears to my eyes the first time I saw it.
Still does for me.
Yeah. There's a lot of places where you can get up close and personal with it that you can't get to at this exhibit. But at the same time, when most people think of the space shuttle, they don't think of just the orbiter. They think of the shuttle, they think of the orange tanks, and the white boosters. You have all of those here. You can see it as it was on launch. And I know there's a lot of people who are like, well, you never really be able to see the shuttle in space like that, but if you were at a launch, you could see it stacked. I even saw people in chat saying, I never saw one out on the launch pad, but I want to. I think that's the benefit of this. It shows the shuttle the way people think of it more commonly. It brings out the history in it. So I think that it is Atlantis by the tiniest of hairs.
Really?
Very, 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 very close behind by Endeavor.
Really? I thought you were going to say Endeavor, like for sure.
I mean, if you factor in favorite shuttles, then yes. But in terms of strictly just display, I also have to keep in mind they haven't added all the extra fancy displays that are going to be around it and all the educational aspects that will be with it too. This is just the display of the orbiter currently. So, and the tanks and everything. But yeah, November 13th, in the heart of Los Angeles, you can go see it. There's even public transit that gets to it. When it opens, go see it. Trust me. It's amazing. By the way, I did see someone asking. I was wearing in the photo I think that got posted on the socials. The shirt that I was wearing, my Endeavor shirt. That one is also available, just like Max's sun shirt there with those space shuttle tiles. Or are those shuttle tiles?
They are. Yeah, these
At
are from Atlantis.
shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Did you know that we have a shop? I don't think we've ever mentioned it on this stream. But yes, we have that. And we also have a summer sale going on right now. See, they're all of our summer gear, 10 to 20% off. I mean, take a look. We got all the towels. We got all the Hawaiian shirts. We've got all the lightweight stuff. Everything you need to stay cool and look cool. You've got the swim trunks back. We've got those sun shirts, which again are super lightweight. They're really nice. So protect you from the sun, but also you still manage to stay cool. It's not like you're dying in long sleeves out there. Hey, who's that guy?
A great display of both Starship tiles and the Shuttle TPS tiles.
Yes. But yeah, so look cool, stay cool, and keep your wallet cool with the summer sale at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Thank you, Kevin. Let's see here. Oh yeah, of course I still lie here. The beach towels. Can't forget about those too. Another thing that hopefully we won't forget about, obviously the shuttle program has ended, and another program is about to reach a critical end milestone as well.
Oof.
Max?
Yeah. This might be a bit of a more brief topic, but next week, Thursday, July 2nd at 12:24 a.m. Eastern Time is going to be the final flight of a 500 series Atlas V rocket, or just Atlas V as we have so commonly come to know it. After 708 or 709 flights of the Atlas lineage, that comes to an end next Thursday morning, or technically Wednesday night, Thursday morning, depending on how you want to look at it. But it is the 8th launch aboard Atlas of the next batch of Amazon LEO satellites heading up to low Earth orbit. So a bit of a somber mission that one's going to be, because Atlas V has been flying pretty rapidly over the last few months between the last few Amazon LEO missions. But after this one, the remaining Atlas Vs on the launch manifest are all assigned to Starliner, which is a far different launch configuration. Whereas now they use up to 5 GEM 63 solid rocket boosters from Northrop Grumman. They use obviously the 5-meter diameter payload fairing, and also a single engine configured Centaur 3 upper stage. Starliner is, the 500 series Atlas with the Amazon LEO configuration is known as the 551 for the parameters that I just listed. The Starliner configuration is called the N22, and that is called the N22 because N stands for no payload fairing. The first 2 stands for 2 engines on the Centaur upper stage, and then 2 solid rocket motors attached to the Atlas V core stage, which are the old AJ60 style SRBs that are no longer in service, apart from the Starliner configured Atlas V. And Lord knows how many of those are actually going to fly. There is currently only one, I believe, Starliner mission on the manifest this year, and that is a cargo-only mission to the International Space Station, with the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th flight for sure assigned with crew, and then 2 more assigned on, or 2 more to be or could be assigned as crew flights should the demand call for it. But those last 2 flights may not happen, and depending on how the next flight of Starliner goes, that might be it. Because it's not like they can just pluck an Atlas booster or a Centaur 3 upper stage off the line anymore. Both have been out of production for a while, not to mention the fact that the ULA has no other ways to manufacture either the old, like the super old style 4-meter payload fairing or the 5-meter payload fairing anymore. They are all in on Vulcan, and we know Vulcan is currently still going through its woes with the recent SRB anomaly from the USSF 108 or 106 mission back in February, but also the recent anomaly with New Glenn at Launch Complex 36, which seemed to have been sparked by or from the BE4 engine section. And if it was the BE4s that actually caused that, Vulcan has both those faulty SRBs and the BE4s. And the next Vulcan rocket is currently stacked in VIF A, or the Vertical Integration Facility A for Amazon, right next to Space Launch Complex 41, which is where both Vulcan and Atlas fly from Florida. So Lord knows how many more times Atlas V is going to fly after this Thursday. It could be all 6. It could be 3. It could be 2. It could be even 1 in a worst case scenario, which is really sad because Atlas V has proven to be an absolute workhorse over the years and has been remarkably reliable. But in terms of the Atlas family, we're talking, I think it was 1959 was the first flight of an Atlas family launch vehicle. I could be off on that. But regardless, there have been over 700 flights now of the Atlas family of rockets. And again, who knows how many more we'll have. So I want to post it back to you guys. Does this introduce a larger period of uncertainty for ULA with Vulcan not being yet ready to fly, despite the next Vulcan launch vehicle almost ready to fly in VIF A? And how many of those Starliner assigned flights up to 6? How many do you think are actually going to fly?
I mean, I have a feeling a bunch of those Atlases. Hi, I'm Alex. I think a bunch of those Atlases. There we go. That's me. I think a bunch of those Atlases are going to end up in museums, if we're being perfectly honest. I mean, I don't think every Atlas is going to fly. At the same time, I'm a little bit glad because that means we might get to preserve an Atlas or two, even if you end up making a fake fairing to put on it so it can be displayed in a launch configuration somewhere, like the Rocket Garden at KSC or another museum of some kind. But I mean, ULA, I have to give them props, knocked out these last Amazon Leo missions fast. I don't know if it's just because they wanted to get rid of Atlas out quickly so they could focus more on Vulcan, but I mean, they got more Amazon Leo satellites into space in like the last couple months than Amazon had up to this point in the last year. So you got to give them props for that. But I mean, I think that it's not too soon. I know that Vulcan had its issues, and I'm sure they're kind of upping the pace to make sure that they know exactly what happened with it to get the review completed so they can go back to flying that. But I think, Atlas has served its purpose. It was an amazing vehicle. It's sad to see it go with the fairing configuration, and given that we don't have any, what was it? They had 2 extra Starliner missions that NASA could purchase if they wanted.
Yeah.
I don't think those 2 are going to fly.
I'm of a similar opinion, but I'll have to reserve that for how the actual Starliner 1 mission goes to the space station, to be perfectly honest. What about you, EJ?
I think Vulcan is Atlas 6.
It doesn't answer the question at all, bro.
I'm sorry. I know, but I just needed to put that in there. Sorry. Anyway, tell me what's up.
So go ahead, Atlas 6 then. What do you think?
For when it's going to launch again?
Well, so I guess the question is this is the last 500 series Atlas to fly, and with how uncertain Starliner is going forward, and Vulcan not necessarily having a clean bill of health to fly again yet, despite there being the next vehicle mostly stacked in VIF A, like how big of a period of uncertainty does this introduce with ULA? And of the remaining Starship or Starliner assigned Atlases, how many will actually fly?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my honest opinion, I don't think it's going to do much. The reason, this is going to surprise, gonna get a little spicy. Oh no,
Here's my shock face.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So I don't think it's going to put a gap in. The reason why I don't think it's going to put a gap in is because I think the problems with the GEM-63s have already been solved. However, because of the long lead time on GEM-63XL boosters, it is likely that I can't prove this. You guys can say I'm full of it. It's fine. It is likely that they flew GEM-63s that they knew could be susceptible to, let's say, nozzle observations because they had them. It's possible. That is entirely a possibility. With how much of a long lead item a single case carbon composite SRB is like the GEM-63, it's very likely that this problem is already solved and a new batch of SRBs is coming around the corner. Now, with the B4, I don't know. I think if Vulcan is using the kind of Block 1 BE4s that like New Glenn initially used, then there's not a problem there. It's the thing is the Block 2 configuration seemingly has caused problems for Blue. I'm not saying that was why NG4 popped, but it was during engine startup. That's all I'm saying. So, I mean, it does suck that we're seeing the end of Atlas here, but I'm not sure there's much to worry about with Vulcan. Unless it's using those Block 4s, the Block 2 BE4s, excuse me.
Well, the BE4s that fly on Vulcan, I think, are already configured differently because they're a more expendable version of BE4 compared to the BE4s that fly on New Glenn, which are optimized for reuse.
Yeah, they wouldn't. I mean, ULA wouldn't change the config just because Blue had a new version of it, right? So, yeah, I think they're going to fly. I don't think that Vulcan is going to have a long period of time where it has downtime, Max, to be 100% honest with you.
But and what about Starliner? How many of those? So there's currently there's 6 more assigned that could be assigned, 4 for sure, and 2 additionals if the demand's there. How many of those are actually going to fly?
How much time do you have?
We still have Starship to get to.
Lay it out. Lay it out, EJ.
The long story short, look, did Starliner have a big problem with CFT1? Oh yeah. But honestly, the problem is, I think the problem is kind of mitigatable. Well, not mitigatable. All right. So what happened with Starliner is that they didn't get the thermal analysis right on thermal soak into the reaction control systems correct. They didn't get the thermal analysis right, and because of that, the pulse width modulation, which is the control mechanism for modulating RCS thrust. So when you see a spacecraft move around, you see a pulse RCS in all different directions. Pulse width modulation comes from the rate of firing on RCS. Max, it works like a fuel injector on a fuel injected car. You hear the
yep,
right? Same kind of idea. Pulse width modulation is used on fuel injectors and automobiles. Or variable pulse width modulation. So look, if that was the only thing that only problem with Starliner, that's entirely mitigatable. Now, like I said, they brought back the Starliner just fine, and then out of an abundance of caution, Butch and Sonny came down on a Dragon, right? Pulse width modulation and doing thermal analysis doesn't take as long to figure out as the time, especially when you have flight data, and particularly anomalous flight data, right? As the time that Starliner has been down. So that tells me 2 things. That tells me that, when Starliner landed, they found something else that's like, uh-oh, this isn't good. And they've been trying to fix that quietly. Or, I don't have a better way to put this because we're short on time. Starliner gives astronauts the ick. Yep. I don't have a better way to put that. So conceivably, with the problems, if the problems that they encountered during CFT1 were, what they said they were, they should be easy to fix. So we should see Starliner flying soon, right? But I think that after what happened with Butch and Sonny, astronauts are like, no. And astronaut input into spacecraft development is huge. Look at Bob and Doug with the Dragon, right? Like, they had a lot of input on how that spacecraft flies. A lot of developmental ops, with astronaut feedback in the test Dragon, right, to make sure that it works correctly. So, I don't know. It's like I said, this is kind of a non-answer, but Starliner it's probably going to fly in the summer, if I had to guess. Probably going to fly in the summer, but like I said, the problem is that they found more problems with Starliner. I don't know. I have no idea when we're going to see an N-22 fly, dude. I have no clue.
So how many of those remaining do you think we're going to see then?
That's
the ultimate question.
They're contracted for 6. we're going to see at least one, and then maybe a crew flight, maybe. So I'd say 2 at the very least. But with the rate that they're going at, Max, like there's going to be no ISS to send it to. Like,
No.
I hate to be that guy, but
Or an orbital reef or any other station that is, yeah.
That's my thought too.
Like, you know, Dragon, the commercial crew program, I was talking with a viewer in chat about this a second ago. You know, I don't know, guys. Like, you know, I don't want to. I'm going to get super spicy here because I'm already crossed that bridge. So, like, Max, like, you know, while we're on the subject, is that I don't know how many more Starliners we're going to see. We might not see another one. They might just use Starliner to resupply the space station, and you know that's fine. Whatever, you get your use out of it, but that objectively means that the commercial crew program has failed. Think about that for a second. Noodle on it.
Ooh.
The commercial.
At that point, isn't it 50% successful? Although I know the whole point was to have the redundant dissimilar architecture.
Bingo.
May I bring an extra point to this conversation? I'm sorry,
Sure.
I was very quiet.
Yes.
I also had to review Twiz.
Go ahead.
Because it sort of ties in with the other report that we didn't get to do last week because we didn't have TFT, that there's this whole space station transition from the International Space Station to the private ones. Right now, there is sort of redundancy because even though there's only Crew Dragon on the US side, you still have Soyuz, right, as a last line of defense, if you will, or the other way around. Like if Soyuz does an oopsie, then you still have Crew Dragon, which kind of happened a few times in the last few years, to be fair. But what happens with the private stations if Starliner is not developed? And even worse, like if SpaceX goes all in with Starship and completely retires Crew Dragon and Cargo Dragon, like, are we going to see big starships? Well, we're seeing a big orange cat.
Orange rocket good, orange cat good.
Like, are we going to see starships like this just dock to little stations? Because in comparison, they're little stations, to be fair.
Well, Alex, I would say in that
to carry crew or what? Like, there's just not going to be any redundancy at that point.
Alex, I would say at that point, Starship is the redundancy because Starship would be your space station. It's just, think about it like a reusable Skylab. You send, I don't know, you can send something to it. And I was going to say send Dragon to it, or you could just launch people on it for a long duration mission like what they used to do with Shuttle. You know, like.
Well, we'll see. I just feel like there's some. How to explain this? It's a bit like having a limping table, you know, and you're sort of going down and trying to put a book under the sort of thing.
Oh, a leaning table.
Or a leaning table or whatever. Yeah, we call it limping in Spanish. I don't know why. So that's what I use there. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, man. I really want to believe that it's all going to be solved because it kind of, like, the space program kind of needs that redundancy just in case. And, like, more options, more better. I want to see... My secret hope here is that... Well, not so secret, I guess. that we get Blue Origin out of the blue, no pun intended, and saying,
"Oh God,
hey, we got our own crew spacecraft that we are developing." Right? That Sierra Space actually goes through and says, "Yes, let's do Crew Dream Chaser." That there are actual multiple options out there that, you know, are just...
There's no market for it, Alex. Without the ISS, there's no market. Why would they do it? Why bother?
Yeah, then there's also no market for the commercial stations then.
Yeah, speaking of things that might not also happen, Dream Chaser, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this feeds to a theory that I have with this whole dichotomy of public-private partnerships, that NASA needs to be doing redundant things in space that are more optimized for scientific optimization. And does that include using stuff like SLS? Yes. I mean, SLS could launch another, you know, that core module that Jared talked about in Ignition, which I hear is not a thing anymore. You could launch a space station one shot with an SLS, right? It'd be a great use of it, you know, for the people that think, you know, we could use commercial providers to go to the moon, right? And then you can keep fostering that low Earth orbit environment until it matures even more. And that eventually could lead to capabilities that would build a commercial market. That was the whole point of the Commercial Crew Program and the ISS and the early parts of the Constellation program, handing over low Earth orbit access to low Earth orbit commercial access vehicles. And that's what I mean about the Commercial Crew Program objectively has failed in that regard. Now, I'm not going to say that it's not a success because of Dragon, right? Dragon is a feather in the cap of the Commercial Crew Program, absolutely. But one of the main stakeholder expectations for Commercial Crew was to get redundant dissimilar architecture in space, redundant dissimilar access to low Earth orbit capability to foster a commercial market. By Rook's own admission in NASA admission, well, Dana Weigel technically, it has failed in that regard. It has failed. A commercial low Earth orbit market has failed to materialize, even with commercially operated low Earth orbit access vehicles, right? So that tells me that the only way that a commercial partnership is going to be fostered is if NASA has another big space station in space. Well, it doesn't need to be big, like Skylab or something. It doesn't need to be ISS big. To be honest, the ISS only makes sense if you have a space shuttle, and that ship sailed or got put into a museum. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and to be fair, like NASA of the International Space Station crew, they only have like maybe 2 or 3 astronauts at a time. The other folks are Russians and maybe 1 international partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like right now there's a French astronaut, and then there's like 3 Americans and 3 Russians, and so there you have 7 people. So you have this massive station to support 7 people, but if it's only NASA and NASA's needs, you only need a much smaller one with like maybe room for 4 people, and that's it. Like the Russian segment is the other half, and then you have one half of the station. Like if you were able to have like a half station sort of thing, right? But also at the same time, it's like, what if because this is another thing, and I've read this because we talked about this I'm sorry for deviating all of this into commercial stations, but it's also sort of part of the conversation about Atlas V and those remaining 6 missions, right? Because that's the only way that Starliner could in the future fly more often. That when NASA came up with the whole core module proposition or whatever, right? Like that idea that they put together. It was because they said, hey, there's no commercial market here. And then the companies, I saw reactions from like Vast, Axiom, and the likes, right? From either the CEOs or high-ranking officials at those companies, either on social media or on interviews out there and things like that. And they all made the point that sometimes the commercial market is not about like private companies, but about other governments apart from the US also asking them to have an into their stations. And we've seen this, for example, with Vast, CNES, the French space agency, right? They have bought rights on Vast to the International Space Station, but also to Haven as well. There's also partnerships with Axiom and other foreign governments. And it's true that it tends to be like foreign governments that they don't have a lot of money to support their own space programs, like their own stations and things like that, but they have enough at least to buy some rights to these stations, or at least to the current station, and say, okay, I'm gonna pay for you to be able to get my astronaut up there and have that. And so it seems to me that the reason why they dropped the core module stuff is because the companies went up to NASA and said, look, it's true that there's not like 1,000 different companies out there trying to make materials in space and all that stuff, but there are a bunch of governments that are trying to get their astronauts up there because they do have the budget for at least that. They don't have the budget to like make their own launcher or have like a crew capsule in a station and things like that, but they do have at least the funding to afford getting, a ride on Crew Dragon, or, getting the people up there into space. So I wonder if that's the future of these stations. Like maybe they become more international than the International Space Station. That will be ironic, but also kind of funny.
I don't
guess.
think the objective of the commercial crew program was to foster
No.
more government contracts, dude. I'm pretty sure that wasn't. I mean,
It's obviously
you're
it
probably
was also
right.
not the it was also not the point of like, modifying such a spacecraft to have a cupola or something like that. Like, one thing is the original intent, and then sort of the what's it called? I cannot remember the name. When you have like different things that you can do with the same stuff, spin-offs. There you go. Like you can have spin-offs of that original intention, right? Obviously, the commercial crew program initial intention was to provide redundant capability to the U.S., but on the point of whether Starliner can fly in the future, this could be a way for it to find a market, for it to provide rights to space to these commercial stations, and they could get paid by foreign governments to do that. They just need to get their things together, basically.
I mean,
get out of the hole that they are in right now.
Spinning the commercial crew program as a success because it failed in its primary stakeholder expectation.
I'm just saying that's the only way that it can be redeemed, if you will.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I don't think it's wise to not have clearly defined goals for a program and then hope that the spin-off technology is going to get you somewhere. I'm pretty sure that's why we're in the position we are with our space program, dude. Just saying.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
see what happens.
I do want to thank John Whitaker for claiming a PadRat membership. Very much appreciate all of our members here at NSF. Thank you very much for that. Now, speaking of things that begin with star, SpaceX.
Oh, God.
Especially that begins with Starship.
I'm surprised
so I'll send it over to Star Max for Starship Star Update.
I'm gonna close off Atlas on one more note, though, if I may. It's just that it's gonna be really sad for Atlas to die with Starliner. I'm sorry. That's a terrible fate. That's a terrible fate. Like, Atlas deserves better. Atlas 5 deserves better. Deserves better than
Max.
Death by Starliner.
Can I even go so far as for Atlas to go out with the last 500 series launching Amazon Leo satellites?
Yeah.
Like, I don't have anything against Amazon Leo. That's cool, but
there have been way cooler payloads for Atlas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
like that thing launched things to Mars,
I want to pose a question to the panel before we go to Starship. I promise we're going to Starship. Do you guys have a favorite mission that launched on Atlas 5? Mine was actually Curiosity.
Yeah, there's been so many cool science missions. I'm gonna say everything that had science on it.
Perseverance.
Osiris Rex.
I mean, New Horizons.
Ooh.
Good call.
With the slider. Oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I'm kind of tempted to say the Amazon Kuiper protoflight it was a 501. It was a 500 series Atlas with no solids on it.
Oh yeah,
that's always fun to see.
Just like the launches of the X-37B, right?
Exactly.
Which are also without solids, but it's got the big fairing because it's a rather lightweight payload, but it's big. It's because it's got the wings and everything, so they need the 5-meter one, but they don't need the full performance of having solid rocket boosters and all that. And so it's weird because it's like this thin thing, and then it ends in this big fairing.
It's so slow off the pad. It's glorious. It just lumbers its way off the pad. It's like Starship Flight 1, where it's just like
grab losses.
Yeah. By the way, if you take my shot full screen for just a second, Kevin, I always have photos and stuff in my background. That one over there, it's hard to tell, I know, because it's kind of dark, but that's the Proto Flight one. That's one of the remotes from it.
That was a good one.
I always have that in the background because I do like that flight too. With the
that was a good one to shoot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Now finally on Starship, where there's not much to cover on Starship this week apart from the main headline being Ship 40. Obviously, we saw it roll out a few days ago for what we presume to be engine testing, because obviously we saw it perform its cryoproof testing campaign a long time ago. As actually. Really, Kevin? Really, Kevin? Oh God. Yeah. Start everything. No. Obviously, Elon is not on the board or of the opinion that I think we have too many name. We have too many objects in this world with the prefix of star in them now. I think E is on board with that now.
What
Yes.
the
Really,
AI
Kevin?
is
Really?
this?
Really? Are we allowed to show that on the stream? I didn't know that was coming. Jeez Louise.
Oh wait, I forgot. That's because someone, I believe, purchased some of the domains
God.
that involved the word "star" in front of them. A
Kevin
certain
just
producer.
went on a he
Yeah.
went on a buying run there with so many domains.
I had a whole path there that I wanted to explore, and then Kevin had to drop that AI slop right in there and say,
You do your
no.
thing. Don't let him derail you.
I can't talk about Ship 40 in a serious tone or Flight 13 in a serious tone with this bullcrap on the screen.
I do need to see where it redirects to.
What?
I can't swear, but I can't use it, my natural language, but we can show this on stream. Okay, fine.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
higher expectations as the host than the
Fair.
potty mouth producers.
Yeah.
But then again, now that he's a host.
Oh yeah, that's right. He shouldn't be doing it. You're a potty mouth, Kevin.
Or never mind. I'm not
SMH,
gonna...
my curse words.
SMH. Good lord. Anyway, back to Ship 40. Ship 40 was back at Massey's for a few days for what we presume to be engine testing, since it already performed its cryo testing last month. And obviously, it looked like they either had an igniter test or an aborted static fire test. 2 days ago, I think it was. And obviously, we have no way to confirm whether it was igniters or if it was an aborted static fire. But yesterday, we did see a static fire, although one we have not seen in quite a minute. And it was a single engine test of a sea level Raptor 3 engine aboard Ship 40. The reason why we haven't seen it in a while is because we haven't seen a single engine relight test. I think it was, was it Ship 38 at Pad 1? Alex, right?
So I have here the list. The ones I have done a single engine test, at least for ever since the first flight of Starship, full stack Starship, was Ship 26, Ship 28, 29, 33, 35, 36, 37, and now 40.
So
the last one was
Ship 37 at Pad 1 was the last one we saw perform a single engine test, which is meant to simulate the in-space relight test of Starship once in orbit to either accelerate its orbit or to deorbit itself, which Starship will need to do once it goes fully orbital. Kind of surprised to see it. But then we saw Ship 40 get ready for rollback and a road closure posted today, and Ship 40 rolled back to Mega Bay 2 this morning. So without performing a full 6-engine test, which either means SpaceX is going to forego a 6-engine static fire, or they saw something in the data with that one Raptor 3, and they want to address that before having Ship back out at Massey's to perform the full 6-engine test. So as far as we know, Ship 40 now is back on a work stand in Mega Bay 2. We saw the static fire stand leave Mega Bay 2. So unsure what the road forward is for Ship 40 at this point, but an even bigger question mark at this point, I believe, is Booster 20. It should be receiving engines right now before its own static fire campaign, although we have absolutely no way to prove that. I would like to believe that it is receiving engines. Oh, audio, hello.
Noises.
Yes, loud noises.
It's Gavin. There was birds.
I think this is footage from the single engine test yesterday. Yes, I think this is from Caesar as well. But yeah, we don't know what's happening with Booster 20 either. A big question mark there. So I'd like to believe that it is currently receiving engines or has already received engines and is getting ready to be checked out and head to Pad 2 for its own static fire campaign. But if they are going to be targeting Flight 13 sometime in July, they kind of have to pick up the pace, especially with Booster 20. So that essentially is where we're at with both Flight 13 vehicles. We obviously are seeing a bunch of work still progressing over at Pad 2. We are still seeing some deluge testing, which is kind of alarming still at this point to see them progressing at the rate that they still have. Either they are still dialing in the systems in terms of pressures and timing, or they have stuff that is just not to their liking yet, even from Flight 12, which was the first flight from Pad 2 and this new launch mount. that they are still working on and addressing and fine tuning. Work still happening on the chopsticks as far as we can tell. Ship 42 has also been stacked on top of its payload bay. I believe that's all of the major stuff happening in Starbase that's worth covering. We have also seen some other activity happening here at Launch Complex 39A, and also with hardware rolling out from Hangar X or the Roberts Road complex here at the Kennedy Space Center. First and foremost, we saw the ibuprofen launch mount testing jig on the launch mount over at Pad A, which is a big milestone. that is meant to simulate I believe the launch loads and weight of a fully stacked Starship vehicle on the hold down arms and clamps and QDs on the launch mount itself. We saw a crane around there as well. I believe it was being removed or installed. I'm kind of out of the loop, guys. I've had a very long couple of weeks. But that's been happening. And I think also the more noteworthy item that happened was the first of what we believe to be Pad 37's chopsticks for the first launch tower was rolled out from Roberts Road. And I believe it went past 39A or went to Space Launch Complex 37, which is obviously where it is, where we believe that it is meant to go for Starship's next launch facility in Florida. So that's exciting. We love to see hardware out and about, Starship hardware. It is also still very strange to see more Starship hardware in Florida, considering how much we are used to seeing Starship hardware in obviously Starbase. But yes, this is again a stark reminder that Starship is coming to Florida, folks. Hopefully by the end of this year. And this is one of my photos that I grabbed of the actual chopstick arm as it passed by the VAB.
It's beautiful.
It's rusty, is what it is. It's got a lot of rust on it.
And
but whatever, it'll buff out.
It'll buff out. Yeah. Go ahead, Alex.
I believe Julia has posted a picture as well of the tower sections being stacked.
Yep, I was just getting to that. Yes, and so I believe Module 3, or I think it's Module 4, actually, is currently either being or ready to be stacked at Starship's first launch tower at Space Launch Complex 37, which is really, really good news because a majority of Starship launch activity in the next, I want to say 3 to 4 years, Launch Complex 37 is fully up and operational, is going to be coming from Space Launch Complex 37. And as you can see, here is a photo from our own Julia Bergeron from, I believe this is Cars Park, looking out towards Pad 37 and the module is going up. The skyline, what?
The crane, it has a power boom. You got to say it just like that.
But either way, I think the skyline here on the Space Coast is still going to continue to change as obviously more and more towers are built at Pad 37, which used to be prominent because of the old Delta family infrastructure that was there, which has since been demolished and made room for Starship infrastructure. They're coming in right now, obviously, as you can see. So that is basically where we're at with Starship. And given the updates that we have seen, I want to pose a couple of questions to the whole panel here. When Starship Flight 13, do you think July or no? And when the first flight from Florida?
I got this, boys. I got this.
What are the questions again? Just so I can,
When Flight 13 and when Flight 1 from Florida?
Okay. Flight 13, last week of July, first week of August, somewhere in that nominal gap. First flight from the Cape, the end of the year.
Like when end of the year? Like October, November, December? Like Q4 for sure?
I'd say October. October or November.
October. Okay. Okay.
They moved the stools over there. They wouldn't move the stools over there unless they were ready to move ships over there. Right?
Well, there isn't really a ship ready to be transported yet. But the barge, you'll thank me later, has obviously delivered I think it was 2 ship transport stands and a booster transport stand from Starbase to the turn basin over at KSC. So yes, there is hardware coming. And hopefully, it might be ship 42 or 43. That might be the first assigned to Florida, and maybe booster 22 might be the first one for Florida, if I had to guess, just based on the current realm of operations. But Alex, what do you think?
Ooh, I could go in a really long rant, not rant, but more like discussion, I guess, or debate,
An Alex
or
answer,
whatever you want to call it. Yeah, sure. I think the Flight 13 might be end of July, beginning of August. I said this right after Flight 12, and I said in the best case, late July, early August, and I said, in a case where they keep finding things like, obviously, worst case scenario is like heat death of the universe, right? That's sort of the really worst case scenario. But I sort of gave this window of like maybe late July, early August for the earliest, and then maybe like if things keep delaying and things like that, and it slips too much, maybe September at like sort of that month and a half window that I give at the end of Flight 12. I think it's narrowing. I think it might not go as badly as saying it's gonna drop into September. I also think that the more that we not see Booster 20 out there on Pad 2 and getting static fired, the other end of the window also, starts moving into August. And so this whole thing just starts stretching, getting tighter and tighter. So I'm going to say end of July. I'm going to be optimistic because I am very selfish here. I want to see that eclipse that we got out here on August 12th in Spain.
Yeah.
And I've got plans for that, and I don't want this thing to launch either the week off or the week before. Maybe the week after, if they want to do it like August 20th, good, be my guest, whatever. But please, not the week before or the week off, because I got plans.
What about Florida, though?
Florida, I think it's late this year. They want to do it like at least based on what Weinshot was said. When they went public, she talked about potentially Flight 15 if Flights 13 and 14 go to plan, which will be sort of like Flight 13, they repeat Flight 12, but actually, getting boost back burn of the booster correct, relight on the ship, all that stuff. The little things that, at the end of the day did not work. Yep. And then Flight 14 will be sort of orbital, right? And then Flight 15 out of Florida. I think whenever they go to Florida, it's going to be with a reuse booster because stealing a booster from the production line at Starbase, it's probably not going to be cheap. Like it's going to cost them a launch out of Starbase. That's my point, right? And I explained this many times before in many previous flame trenches where I said they have two options. Either they completely forego like they stop launch operations at Starbase for like 2 months to get a booster ready and finished, or they sort of finally catch a booster and pick it up and send it to Florida for reuse. And I said this the other day where I said I think there's a good chance that if they catch, so they do another splashdown attempt with booster 20, booster 21 first catch of version 3 booster, right? And then they try to reuse that, it's very likely, given the timelines, that they are able to reuse that before Booster 22 even completes its pre-launch testing. Unless they prioritize that work, in which case then, of course, it's sort of like, biased work towards that other booster. But I think it will be possible for them to reuse Booster 21 if they catch that one, again, that's the caveat here, before they even complete Booster 22. Like do 2 flights of that booster. I would not be surprised if that were to happen because boosters take a long time.
They do, as we have seen before, and obviously Booster 20 is taking its sweet time in Mega Bay 1. Is it? I had no idea.
Yeah, they're super heavy, but also super complex.
Jesus, Alice.
Well done.
But that's why reuse is so useful. You not only save money, but you also, you don't have to wait around for that hardware to be made. It's like it's already there. Just fly it.
I'm also of the opinion that it's probably going to be Flight 15, and also probably October and November have proven to be good months for Starship launches, or just launches in general for the past couple of years. Because in 2025 or 2024, in October we had Flight 5. Everyone knows Flight 5, legendary. Then we had Flight 6 in November, like not long afterwards. And then last year we had Starship Flight 11. And then we had New Glenn Flight 2 in November, which was their first time actually launching and recovering a first stage New Glenn booster. So October, November could be another good month for launches, assuming the trajectory for Starship is nominal for the rest of the year, because Flight 12 didn't quite go as well to plan as SpaceX, I guess, hoped. I guess, hoped, especially if they're having to do a rinse and repeat for the most part in Flight 13. But who knows? Maybe some more positive news is to come of it, and we can see Starship here before then in terms of vehicles. But I think we can see Flight 13 as early as probably the third week of July, depending on how vehicle progression goes at this point.
You want to talk positive news?
Yes.
Then you don't want my answer.
What's your answer? I want to. What you got to say it now? What's your answer?
I know. I'm going to apply Berger's law to everything at this point. I know we've already applied it to the current date, but I have to apply it to the dates that we're talking about here. I'm going to go mid-August for the next Starship flight, and either January or February 2027 for the first Florida Starship launch. Will we see a Starship on the launch pad in Florida in 2026? I think yes. Will we see a launch in 2026? I don't think so, personally. I mean, they still have a lot of work to do. Again, as you pointed out, right now there's a lot of focus on Starbase itself, even if you go with the original plan that Gwen had of, the next flight be another repeat, and then the flight after that being potentially an orbital attempt, and then after that, going to Florida. I still think you're looking at, with all the infrastructure, you've got older tower stuff. I know they're reworking everything and upgrading it since, but a lot of it's been sitting out there right up against the salt water for 4 years, 5 years untouched. I think they're going to encounter things as they put actual hardware out here that's going to delay it a bit, and we see it early 27.
So is Starbases, though. Like that's also right next to the Gulf. So, and obviously crews have been swarming Pad A are here for a long time, over a year now since they repicked up work. So I think the pad could be ready to receive a vehicle as early as like mid-August. I'm going to say it. Like maybe the pad could be ready to receive a vehicle maybe mid-August, September. Maybe.
I don't know about that.
Wow. At that point, obviously, what vehicles are you going to bring there? Now, Alex mentioning the point that they could bring a reuse booster here to Florida would be pretty rad. That would be really freaking cool. And that would make a lot of sense in terms of Starship flight operations and just making sure that Starbase remains clear to proceed with their own campaign. Because again, remember, they have no way to actually build and assemble Starships here in Florida. There is no Star Factory 2.0 here yet. But Gigabay is probably going to be ready to receive at least or shelter vehicles for other minor work, probably by the end of summer, if not before then, because Gigabay here is coming up really, really, really fast. As you can see here from one of our Space Coast live cameras, I think this is from our camera at the KSC press site, and as you can see, it's at its full height. It's received almost all of its cladding from some satellite imagery. The roof is done. So yeah, it's coming along really, really, really well. And again, there's no Star Factory, so that is probably going to be used for shelter and for some other work.
I see what he's
the back and forth between Starbase in Florida.
Yeah,
not to scale.
Not to scale. Yeah. But as you can see, Starbase's bay is nowhere near as long as ours. Subtle flex, but also we don't have a Star Factory or way to build Starship yet.
You can kind of see. Can we? Thank you. So the top levels there that are not cladded yet, that's actually the roof portion. There's not gonna be any construction there. You can sort of see the door, the top of the door on the, how it does like an inverted L there, the cladding, right? You can see like a little bit of sky through that. That's the top of the door of where the door will be, because the opening of the Gigabay will be on the other side. So unconsidered for SpaceX to do it that way. We could have had a view of the pad of the bay. But yeah, I mean, that's as tall as I think the doors are something like 80 something meters.
Yeah,
which is about the height of the mega bays.
Yeah, Gigabay is freaking huge. Taller. I don't think people fully understand or appreciate the scale of just how big it really is. And I think the best way to appreciate that is to take one of the bus tours here from the KSC, the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, because the bus that takes you either on the Explorer Tour and the Saturn V Center on the north side of the vehicle assembly building takes you right up Courtney Parkway and right by Gigabay, and you can fully appreciate just how large it really is. It's basically Visually, it's like 3/4 the size of the VAB. Maybe not in volume, but just in terms of how you see it visually. It's about 3/4 the size. It's not a small building by any means, and it certainly dwarfs both a Mega Bay 1 and Mega Bay 2.
I will say, if you were coming up, like if you're going on a cruise out by 528, you're heading to the cruise port, going your Disney cruise, whatever, and all of that, you see it before you see the VAB, just because of perspective, that it's technically closer to you. But from that vantage point, you look and go, oh, what's that big black structure? No, that's Gigabay. It becomes more prominent now, which is kind of scary to me, that the most prominent vehicle on the Florida, or building on the Florida skyline there in the Space Coast is no longer the most prominent.
I would say VAB is still the most prominent, but Gigabay is certainly among like one of the largest changes to the whole skyline in a long time.
Well, it's most recognizable, the VAB for sure, but I've already had people say, wait, is that the VAB, when referring to the Gigabay when asking questions looking at it.
I mean, it's a big black box. It's pretty foreboding.
People say the same for the SpaceX processing facility. When you see that sometimes, the payload processing facility at the Cape, and some people say, oh, that building, that's the VAB, and it's like, no, it's way smaller than the VAB.
Heard that one as well.
It just has this boxy looking structure, right? And so you think, oh yeah, that's a VAB. Yeah. Are we wrapping up? Like, is this music?
They are playing the music, folks.
Yeah, we're just...
They're playing us out.
Well, let me thank some people before they play us out. Space Pope, good to see you, saying, bless this trench. Gaul, we didn't get to your question of, wait, I'll throw this one to EJ real quick. Since SLS is moving from ICPS to Centaur, is SLS a Delta or an Atlas?
Oh, jeez.
Call SLS the Centaur rocket, just like they do with Delta, named after the upper stage.
SLS Centaur.
Yeah. Yes.
No. Saying it's the Centaur
cool.
rocket.
So technically, by this naming convention that Alex is going to, it's Delta 5 Centaur.
No, just Centaur rocket.
No, Delta 5 Centaur.
But why the Delta?
Because
per
the Delta naming convention, you can change the upper stage design and keep the naming convention.
So Delta 5/Atlas 6 Centaur.
No, it's just Delta 5 Centaur. Anytime in the past that Centaur upper stages have been on top of any rocket, you add Centaur, like Titan 3C Centaur. That actually Centaur was actually the third stage in that design. It was the kick stage.
No, it's not.
Oh God, we don't have time to debate this for Kevin's music.
I'm just trying to rage bait EJ right now. That's all I'm doing.
Bideford saying, wow, Sawyer is taking over Ryan's role. Oh my. Hey, I worked in TV news. I don't work on planes, okay? Anyway.
I like that in chat. SLS is H2 derived. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Stop it.
You're not wrong. You ain't wrong.
Anyway, we hope you derived some joy from this show. Let me thank EJ for being here.
Thanks for having me, guys. Great conversations in chat too. While we were talking here as well. I know being on here is a privilege, and I try to. Why am I small?
What was that?
I'm melting. Anyway, no. Sorry. I know that being on here is a privilege. I try to bring my A game when I come here. So thank you very much for having me. Yeah, I'll see you guys next week.
Absolutely. As I'm in the massive box. Thank you as well for joining, Max Evans.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a super fun time. That was a great time. Yeah, it was a great time.
Now you're big. Your
great
voice has to be deeper.
Yeah, weird. Yeah, I don't know what's happening. It's very strange, but pleasure as always, everyone, and thank you very much, and we'll see you again very soon.
Oh, I hope we're sticking with the trend. Yes, we are. Also joining us, thank you, Tiny Alex, as well.
I'm not putting an even higher pitch voice because my voice is already high pitched.
Come join us, Alex.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes! That was easy.
I'm now big, Alex. I don't even know how to. Whatever. Just outro this. Let's go home. I'm home, but whatever.
Can't outro this because we also have to thank all of our members, in particular the launch directors and flight engineers who are the highest levels of support here. We couldn't do what we do without all of your support. We really appreciate it. And again, launch directors, flight engineers, get your name at the end of all of the Flame Trench shows and all of our NSF live shows. And there's 1.5 million of you now subscribed with us. Not members, but subscribers. So thank you to all of you. Thank you, Kevin Michael Reed, pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and now being a host at NSF. Speaking of hosting, I've been your host for this episode of The Flame Trench, Sawyer Rosenstein. Thank you so much for watching. Stick around here at NSF. This Week in Spaceflight, coming up soon.
And here we go.
There's the W. Here's ignition.
Roger roll, Atlantic. Doubling up.
Did it just do a Kerbal?
Back to the moon and beyond.
Put that in the big bag, Gino.
Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, that sure looks like a perfect world.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
We did have an observation.
Equalizer.
343 unfolds to go.
It's orange.
Water towers can fly!
Bingo! Right in the center. Where's Jacqueline? There it is!
That was surreal.
That's not what we want to see.
No!
Oh my God.
Yikes. You bet. We don't need any more of these.